Chapter 234, Fury and Killing Intent. Lei Peng and the others attacked at the same time. At this time, they felt the taste of what it was like for Boss Lightning Bomb to not be able to move forward. It was like there was an invisible ball of energy in front of them. The flying swords and sabers in their hands were forcibly blocked. Destructive Ling power flooded in. But there was no response, like mud cows entering the ocean. The three were very shocked. Before they were able to retreat, a force suddenly came. They were not able to control their bodies. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The barrel-thick body of the bloody-horned great serpent twisted and turned. Like three sandbags, the three people were thrown about. Zuemo did not raise his head. Every stray thought in his mind had flown away at this time. The arms that he had raised slightly wavered. The movements soft like the ethereal willow branches in the spring. Hiss. The bloody-horned great serpent opened its bloody maw, revealing the arm-thick fangs covered in saliva. A nasty odor spread everywhere. When the venomous saliva dripped on the ground, it would create a bloom of smoke. The almond-yellow eyes of the snake were empty, so cold there was no warmth, only the most instinctive desire to kill. It stared at Zuemo. The killing desire in its eyes became even heavier. Just having suffered from the lightning bomb, the bloody-horned great serpent was full of hate towards Zuemo. Hiss hiss hiss. The snake tail covered in fine silver scales was like a quickly vibrating rattle, giving out a soul-shocking sound as it shot towards Zuemo like an arrow. The space shield around the snake tail also vibrated at high speed. Everywhere it passed, the air was cut up into pieces. The souls of Lei Peng and the others who were still in the air almost left their bodies. They could only see the snake tail. They were only able to see a ball of shadow, a shattered figure like a school of fish made from many little fishes. All three of them were battle-hardened. Yet an instinctive terror uncontrollably spread into every corner of their body. Even if Boss had a Ling shield, he definitely could not stop this attack. The attack of the bloody-horned great serpent was close to the peak of physical power. There were countless methods in the world, but no matter which kind of power, when they reached the peak, all paths ended up at the same place. The three felt as though they were in a glacier, the blood in their bodies freezing in an instant. If Boss died, all of them would not be able to survive. The Jinji on their bodies would restrict their souls instantly, suppressing the soreness of his body. Zhongru forcefully bit his tongue. A thick tang spread in his mouth. Of the three, only he had a thread of energy. He had not wasted his training in this recent while. In blocking this kind of physical attack, Diana Xiao had a natural advantage. Ling power furiously circulated through his body, moving without regard for the consequences. He was like a piece of lead, suddenly dropping down. Bam! A figure shot out of the dirt. He suddenly appeared in front of Zuemo, the scattered afterimages at the center of his vision. The frightening rattles did not have any effect on him now. His mind was empty, focused on one aim. No shock, no joy, no fear, no anger, carefree. A string of wooden Buddhist beads on his wrists slowly lit up. A warm and deep yellow light covering his entire body. Inside the light, Buddhist sounds rang, and countless flashing sutra characters swam. Pew! The snaketail forcefully whipped the golden light on Zhongru's body. The golden light instantly dimmed, and wavered uncertainly like a candle flame lingering in the wind. The bloody-horned great serpent felt as though it had whipped a burning piece of metal, and hissed painfully, the thick serpent body furiously twisting. Pain. Each bone was in pain. Pain that reached the marrow. Pia pia pia. The wooden Buddhist beads on Zhongru's wrists simultaneously exploded into dust, the yellow light extinguishing. Zhongru uncontrollably spat out blood and fell backwards. Before he fell unconscious, he seemed to see two glass-like lights flash. Sky Glass Fist. 14 Revolution Sky Glass Fist. The fists that appeared like glass were so detailed that every line could be seen, just the same as Zuemo's fists. Fear finally slipped into the emotionless yellow eyes of the bloody-horned great serpent. Yet the two fists that were so detailed they looked like toys moved silently, but seemed to have a deadly attraction. It could not muster up a thought of dodging. Bam bam. The two fists hit its space shield. There was no earth-shattering sound. Its space shield, which had been so strong and never had been penetrated before, was like a bubble which had been gently poked. Impossible. This was impossible. For the first time, its body was exposed to the outside. Terror had not even spread through its heart when a nondescript little bead impacted its enormous body. The almond-yellow eyes became blank. A pale coldness furiously spread along its body with astonishing speed. Hiss! The bloody-horned great serpent made a sound as though it was being carved by a knife. Yet the whale seemed to have been gripped and cut off by something else. It felt darkness flood it and drown it. Zhuomo's mind was ringing. He could only hear the sound of his heartbeat, his eyes a-blurred. Everything on the outside seemed so illusory, like they were shadows without any feeling of realism. Compared to the illusion of the outside, his body was extremely detailed in his vision. He was able to see the clearly defined channels of various sizes, the blood vessels which were like tree trunks, the strangely constructed muscles, and the Ling power spread through his marrow and tendons, and the earth energy that was repairing his body. Lei Peng and Nian Lu saw the remaining half-section of the bloody-horned great serpent, and couldn't help but gulp, their eyes full of disbelief. 5th grade. This was a 5th-grade Ling beast. Boss was able to kill a 5th-grade Ling beast. The bloody-horned great serpent had become an ice sculpture, motionless. Its entire body was a pale white. Lei Peng and Nian Lu's eyes suddenly shrank. The two stared with terror at the horns of the bloody-horned great serpent. It was withering away at a rate possible to be seen with the naked eye. Lei Peng did not know how many fights he had experienced, but the terror caused by the strange scene in front of him was uncontrollable, especially since it was a 5th-grade Ling beast. He used all the energy in his body to turn his gaze away. He didn't dare to watch. It was a kind of pale white that was lifeless. It had a strange and abnormal powers. He was afraid he would lose the last of his courage. When his gaze moved to the other size, he instantly became alarmed. Boss was still maintaining his stance after the punch. A bad feeling suddenly rose. Lei Peng furiously flew towards Boss. After Lei Peng's shout, Nian Lu also woke up. When he saw that Boss was unmoving, his expression changed dramatically. Crash! Like a piece of wood, Zhuomo collapsed headfirst. The two flew towards Zhuomo. The Jinji on their bodies had not acted. The two felt slightly reassured. That meant that Boss was not fatally wounded. They could not attend to the bloody-horned great serpent that was withering. One of them grabbed Zhuomo, and the other grabbed Zhongru before they flew quickly towards the camp. The two didn't dare to go through the valley. That black gourd had not looked as though it was a harmless object. The two of them were filled with fear. Who could have thought that Tu Ningmai could summon a 5th-grade Ling beast? A 5th-grade Ling beast and a 4th grade were just separated by 1 grade. But the difference between the two was a deep abyss that could not be crossed. The space shield was just one of the major differences. Ling beasts 5th grade and above were completely protected in the space shield. In reality, a space shield was just an area with Ling power. A Ling power area controlled by the Ling beast and had many abilities. 5th grade Ling beasts were existences that only Jindan could touch. Overtaking their fear was a furiously burning anger, one that burned to every corner of their hearts. When Gongsun Cha returned to the camp, his face was as dark and heavy as water. He had lost the round. He had killed all the way to 50 paces from the commander of the enemy. Only 50 paces. He was extremely furious. If he only had another small troop of balloon fish mo, he could pull the other into the ground with him. Gongsun Cha did not feel happy at all. It was his first time he made the mysterious person enter such a sorry state, and yet his plan had not succeeded. Even though he would lose every match, even though he should be used to defeat, but even so, he hated failure, had an unparalleled hatred. Even if the other was stronger than him, more powerful than him. This battle definitely had given the mysterious person a shock, but so what? No matter how great the shock was, but it was a defeat. To him, there was no meaning. Damn it! Gongsun Cha appeared in the camp with a dark face, and the atmosphere at the camp instantly decreased. Everyone knew they could not provoke Lil Miss at this time. Just at this time, when Gongsun Cha saw Lei Peng and Nian Lu stumble back with Zhongru, he felt all the blood in his body freeze. Clang. He felt that his head was hammered and there was a period of blankness. When the camp saw the wounded boss and Zhongru, the camp exploded, everyone's expressions changing. Damn it! Wasn't this taking their lives as well? If boss died, everyone here would not survive. Everyone's heart was beating frantically. their complexions terrible. Who fucking did this? Kill them. Gong Sun Cha woke up from his daze. He took a deep breath. The energy in his body that had just left came back in a flood. The blood which had just frozen seemed to have suddenly started burning, and rose up. A blush came onto his face as though the delicate face could drip blood. All of you shut up. The anger in his head was like the eruption of a volcano. The burning blood turning to a shout. The tendons in his forehead, at the corner of his eyes, and his neck bulged like they were earthworms, extremely fierce when paired with his ruddy face. All the noise in the camp suddenly stopped, and entered a deathly sentence. Everyone was frightened by the fierce Lil Mississippi. What happened? Gong Sun Cha suppressed the boiling fury inside. His voice rough and controlled, like a black cloud covering everyone's hearts. The deliberate calm of Lil Miss made everyone's heart uncontrollably shudder. Lei Peng and Nian Lu hurriedly narrated everything that had happened in detail. When they heard that the two Xiuzha had summoned a fifth-grade Ling beast, the camp was full of gasps, and when they heard that Boss had killed this fifth-grade bloody-horned great serpent, everyone gasped. In the deathly silent camp, everyone dazedly listened to Lei Peng's trembling voice as he described how the serpent turned a terrifying pale white, and then broke down into dust. It's the Kong brothers under Venerable Qi's command. Of the same group as the guy who spied on us last time, Xieshan opened. Boss isn't seriously harmed. Zhongru has much heavier wounds, and needs to rest for a while. His cultivation was the highest, his eyes the keenest and able to accurately judge the wounds. His words caused everyone to relax. Gong Sun Cha's expression did not turn even the slightest bit better. He generally understood the situation of the rainbow mark butterfly. If Shixiang really met an unexpected occurrence, then he himself. He fisted his hands, unaware that his fingernails had cut into his flesh. He definitely would not forgive himself. He raised his head, his eyes bloodshot. He relaxed his fist and the fingernails came out of the flesh. Organize and depart. Chapter 235. The butcher's 3-section wave killing charge. Zuemo laid on the ground, the 3 golden armor guards by his side. His body was like a sponge, continuously absorbing earth energy from the ground. 14 revolutions of Ling power was over his body's limit. The terrifying Ling power had almost destroyed his arms. The uncontrolled Ling power traveled everywhere inside his body. The earth energy was like paramedics, trying their best to repair Zuemo's body. Destruction, repair, destruction again, repair again. Zuemo's body was like a battlefield. The ferocity of battle almost unimaginable. His limbs occasionally convulsed, which looked extremely strange. No one noticed that as his body was repeatedly damaged, the impurities in his flesh and blood would be tempered immediately. The earth energy that came after was like glue that was full of life, reconstructing the broken flesh. This was just the start. The golden crow fire was also rampaging. When it was completely free from suppression, it silently spread, merging with the Ling power, and started a new round of damage of even greater magnitude. The 5-element glass bead detected danger, and automatically turned, absorbing Ling power from the surroundings. At the same time, threads of pure 5-element base source were released. They mixed with the earth energy, and repaired Zuemo's body. The MO matrix on Zuemo's body flickered on and off. The 3 golden armor guards by his side did not move. They were like statues, standing with their swords motionless. Suddenly, Zuemo's frozen and wooden face started to boil like boiling porridge, appearing extremely frightening. The golden crow fire and the Ling power had entered his face, and started to rampage and destroy. The earth energy and 5-element base source arrived at their tail, and the two sides started a new skirmish on his face. In the sea of consciousness, Pu Yao's expression was heavy. The present situation's complexity was far beyond his predictions, and was outside of his limits to deal with. His blade-like narrow lips did not have any of the usual scorn and mockery, only a deep bitterness and helplessness. After he had escaped the Yao Forging Tower, his strength had started to slip away, even though he had predicted it beforehand. But he had not thought that the power would slip away so quickly. His present power was not even a quarter of what it had been when he had first met Zuemo. This bit of strength was not enough to support him. To choose another person to hold his soul. His expression was unparalleled in its ugliness, ferocity flashing through his eyes. The hatred in his heart had no place to vent. He could only try to think and recall if there was any spell or secret method that was suitable for Zuomo's present situation. Pew pew pew. Zuomo's face suddenly exploded, blood and gore flying. His face had been forcibly changed by someone before. There were many blood clots and flesh tumors below his skin. That was the true cause of his paralyzed and wooden face. The golden crow fire and Ling power mixed together into a destructive force that swept away these blood clots and tumors. The earth energy with the 5-element base source was like a loyal bodyguard. Everywhere it passed, the exposed flesh stopped bleeding, and new flesh grew at a rate visible to the naked eye. The same battle was happening on every corner of Zuomo's body. Flesh continuously exploded, and then regrew. Gradually, the blood scabs on Zuomo's body became increasingly thicker. In the sea of consciousness, Puyao was slightly panicked. A thought flashed through his head. When he recalled a previous situation on Wukong Mountains, he suddenly turned around his face and started to swear at the gravestone. "What are you waiting for?" The gravestone shrouded in the black clouds suddenly sucked the surrounding black clouds into it. The black gravestone became even more deep and dark. The surface of the gravestone was black but was as shiny as a mirror. Suddenly, there seemed to be a shadow moving on the gravestone. Gradually, the shadow became clear on the gravestone. It seemed like the shadow of a person. The figure was very indistinct, and the features were not clear. As the figure appeared, a vast presence suddenly appeared. Puyao dazedly looked at the indistinct yet familiar figure on the gravestone. It was as though a body paralysis curse had been cast upon him. He was motionless. The mountain valley 20 li ahead is Venerable Qi's base. Xieshan was very familiar and naturally knew, because he had been in conflict with Venerable Qi for a long time. He was also full of fear. If something really had gone wrong with Boss, he would have died without an explanation. Gongsun Cha did not hesitate and said darkly, "Kill." As his voice landed, the chisel-shaped attack formation of the moving group instantly changed. The two wings spread out like two gigantic claws that viciously pushed forward. Such a ruckus, the other side naturally was prepared. 7 Xiozha flew up and welcomed them. One of the people opened and inquired, "You, kill?" Gongsun Cha did not have the interest in chatting with the other, and interrupted him. 3 little teams were like 3 bolts of lightning. Without a word, they leapt at the 7 enemies. The 7 Xiozha evidently had not expected that Gongsun Cha would not even give a greeting before starting the fight, and instantly panicked. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! One of the Xiozha had learned a spell similar to Sky Thunder Sound. When he shouted, it echoed through the mountains. The enemy had came brimming with killing intent. The 7 people quickly worked together in defense. This place was their base. If they could hold the other side back for a moment, their reinforcements would arrive. All of the Xiozha that could survive in Little Mountain Jia were old-timers experienced in fighting. Everyone knew what they had to do, and what they should not do. Form the formation. The leader shouted. The other 6 moved into position, their flying swords and talismans out. But right after, the expressions of the 7 changed. A little team from the other side charged at them with no signs of slowing down. The 3 people were like a little chisel, their flying swords in their hands pressed to the maximum, each spitting with long sword energies. The 3 sword energies crossed and merged, forming a terrifying sword energy 2 zhang wide, and 10 zhang long. Woo woo woo. The sound of the enormous sword energy tearing the air shook their souls. The 7 people had never expected the enemy to attack with such determination, without holding anything back. That was insane. While this kind of attack would be powerful, but it meant sacrificing any variation. If the enemy was able to dodge or bear it, these 3 people would become calves waiting for slaughter. The 7 people unconsciously chose to dodge. It was unwise to face such a ferocious attack head-on. The 7 people that scattered did not realize the formation they had just formed instantly crumbled. The 3 people holding the gigantic sword energy were like an enormous and sharp sword, and could easily slice through the 7 people. The 2 other little teams that followed tightly after were like panthers that smelt blood, and silently followed. The 7 people that had been scattered were quickly divided into several groups. At this time, there were Xiuzha continuously flying from the valley into the sky. Without Gongsun Cha needing to order, the teams on the 2 flanks started to attack. 3-section wave killing charge. With the little team as an unit, one wave charged forth after another as though there was no end. Each team would not linger in battle with each charge, and would leave the space for the team behind them. The 3-section wave killing charge was the first battle tactic that Gongsun Cha had learned. Up until now, it was the tactic he was most familiar with using. Compared to the past, it really had completely transformed, and was in a completely different style than Pu Yao's 3-section wave killing charge. Pu Yao's 3-section wave killing charge emphasized strength. It was like a heavy hammer 30,000 caddies heavy, using force to break technique. Gongsun Cha's 3-section wave killing charge emphasized transformations. It was especially skilled at dicing and dismembering the enemy. If Pu Yao's 3-section wave killing charge was a large hammer, Gongsun Cha's 3-section wave killing charge was like a little hammer and a little knife. He first used the knife to dismember the enemy, then used the little hammer to smash the pieces. In terms of brute power, his 3-section wave killing charge was far from Pu Yao's, and many places were raw and in need of perfecting, but in terms of efficiency, he had reached a certain standard. Several little teams continuously charged and killed among the ranks of the enemy like sharp daggers. Dismemberment, it was the work butchers were most skilled at. The former butcher coldly stared at the chaotic battlefield like he was looking at the corpse of a ling beast. The pathways for each slice was so clear in his eyes. He continued to pass down orders of minor adjustments through the same heart necklace. He had left the golden armor guards behind to protect Shixiang. The target of the same heart necklace had therefore switched to the little teams. Under Gongsun Cha's continuous adjustments, the entire team was like a fine-tuned machine, working faster and cooperating better. Compared to the scattering and looseness of the enemy, the Xiuzha under his command maintained 3-people battle units. This caused them to always have the advantage of numbers in battle. After a while, Gongsun Cha stopped his adjustments, looking at the battlefield without a word. They had securely taken control of the battle. No matter if it was in terms of battle tactics or in strength, the Xiuzha under his command held the advantage. This recent while had been a period of rapid growth for those Xiuzha. With large supplies of Jingshi, the black processing meditation mat, and the engraved formations, each person's strength had received a certain degree of improvement. With the fury of almost having died without knowing, with Lil Miss dark stare like a blade at their backs, every team went crazy. No one dared to keep anything back, and no one would do so. Xieshan stood guard next to Gongsun Cha. As the person with the highest cultivation in the camp, he had been promoted to Lil Miss bodyguard. If it had been in the past, for the life of him, he would not have believed that he would act as someone's bodyguard one day. Much less a person who was so young and only of Zhuji cultivation. However, he felt no discontent right now. Looking at the Xiuzha to his side that was in control of the battlefield and the dazzling battle tactics, he sighed in admiration. This was skill. Skill that he definitely could not possess. In this chaotic time, individual power was so insignificant. This kind of skill meant true power. He looked with slight sympathy at the Xiuzha who were working to resist on the battlefield. Xiuzha dropped frequently from the sky, like kites who had their strings suddenly cut. Falling down from such a high elevation. Unless it was a Diana Xiu skilled in body cultivation, other Xiuzha had no chance of survival. Venerable Qi raised his head to look at the sky, his face ashen. Just a few more days. He had not expected the other to have attacked them at their base at such a crucial time, and had not expected the other to be so powerful, and for his own subordinates to not even stand up to one attack. He recognized Xieshan who was far away, but his gaze landed more on the young person standing next to Xieshan. He knew that he had no chance of flipping the situation. Let us surrender. Venerable Qi said 3 words that he didn't dare believe he said. Chapter 236. New Life? Surrender was a very normal matter in Little Mountain Jia. It was extremely hard to survive here. The result of fighting to the end was injuring both sides. Once a group's power was damaged, they would quickly be swallowed up by another group. Surrender became an implicit agreement between the factions in Little Mountain Jia. Those that did not understand how to surrender died quickly. Those that did not accept surrender also died quickly. Fight and surrender was the bread and butter of life. There were all kinds of people under Venerable Qi's command. In Little Mountain Jia, anything like loyalty was an illusion. No one would speak of it. Seeing the situation was not to their benefit, it was normal to him that the remaining people would surrender. Xieshan suddenly went next to Gongsun Cha's ear and said something in a low voice. He was very joyful inside. He hadn't expected Venerable Qi to have something as good as this. Gongsun Cha's face was dark as he listened to the end without saying a word. Just at this time, the surrounding Xiuzha suddenly shifted restlessly. Noticing the shock and fear on everyone's eyes, Gongsun Cha raised his head to follow their gaze. His pupils suddenly shrunk, his dark face changing instantly. At some unknown time, the blue sky where the sun was shining brightly was filled with stars of various sizes. There was none of the brightness of the stars at night time, but every single one was extremely distinct. Even the blinding sunlight could not steal their light. Gongsun Cha felt a bone-piercing cold rise from the bottom of his feet. So strange. Why would stars appear in the daylight? Someone asked with puzzlement. Dunno. It's an apparition, probably not anything good. The person responding was full of worry. Everyone discussed in low voices. Even those Xiuzha who had surrendered and were tied up put their attention on the sky above their heads. Gongsun Cha did not say anything. His entire body felt cold, his limbs numb. It was like there was a heavy rock on his chest. Stars in daytime. He did not know what its appearance really meant, but he clearly remembered the first time he saw the stars in daytime in Sky Moon Jia. The nightmarish terror that made his bones tremble. Now Little Mountain Jia had a repeat of stars in daytime. For some unknown reason, terror took over Gongsun Cha's body. He forced himself to lower his head, tearing his gaze away from the strange sky. After a while his feelings calmed. Such a strange apparition definitely had nothing to do with him. Why should he care? His attention landed back on the Xiuzha who had surrendered. The other Xiuzha had calmed down after than Gongsun Cha did. In their minds, even the strangest apparitions could not compare to the enormous change in Little Mountain Jia. Seeing Gongsun Cha's attention land back on the Xiuzha, Xieshan hurriedly asked, "What to do with these people?" "Kill them." Gongsun Cha's expression was calm as he lightly said, "Kill all of them?" Xieshan was startled and asked instinctively, "What?" Gongsun Cha tilted his head to look at Xieshan. Meeting Lil Miss' calm and slightly delicate gaze, Xieshan's heart froze as he unconsciously avoided the gaze. Gongsun Cha's orders were loyally carried out. However, everyone's faces were slightly unnatural. They were shocked at Lil Miss' viciousness. Killing was extremely normal to them, who hadn't killed, but massacring captives. But when they saw the calmness on Gongsun Cha's face, no one dared to speak. From beginning to end, Gongsun Cha personally watched as all the captives were killed, his eyes not even blinking. That was truly killing without blinking. Xieshan's scalp felt numb. The faint and bashful smile on Lil Miss' face made him only have one thought, run. Suppressing the urge to turn and run, he was full of regret. Why had he showed off? Now he was Lil Miss' personal body. Xieshan's mouth felt bitter. Gongsun Cha clapped, the usual shy smile on his face. Everyone performed well today. No one made a sound. 5 teams stay and guard here. Everyone else returned to camp, now. He did not look at the corpses on the ground, turning and leaving. Clear Sky Sect was built on top of a snowy mountain. The Jia River roared past here as it entered Sky Water Jia. Among the white snow, tall towers stood, all of them built from second-grade snow crystals. Extremely extravagant. 6,000 steps of ice stairs curved down the mountain. At the bottom end of the ice stairs was a crystal tablet made from a whole piece of snow crystal 7 zhang tall. Written on it in cinnabar ink were 2 bright words, Clear Sky. At this time, Clear Sky Sect was a mess. What happened? I don't know. Old Forefather rang the warning bell. Then something major definitely happened. Stop wasting effort guessing. Let's move faster. We'll be punished if we are late. Disciples of various ages hurried to the big hall. In a short while, All the disciples had gathered, an entire patch of silent black. The sect leader and others were standing on the side. On the meditation mat at the very front was a Xiozha whose hair was loose. He was wearing a snowy white robe, appearing about 40 or so. He was Clear Sky Old Forefather, the remaining and only Jindan of the Clear Sky sect. Clear Sky Old Forefather slowly started to speak, his voice clear. Just now there was a worldly apparition. Stars in daytime. It is an inauspicious omen. Once the words came out, the crowd fell into a fervor. Many people had seen the stars in daytime just now, but no one had expected that even the old forefather was also alarmed. Send someone to investigate. Clear Sky Old Forefather said, his words absolute. Yes. The sect leader lowered his head in compliance. How are the recent supplies? Clear Sky Old Forefather asked. Have the Ling grains from 100 Flower Alliance been delivered on schedule? The sect leader said respectfully. They have been delivered at the scheduled time. They hope that they can trade for some 3rd and 4th grade gold element materials, and have given extremely generous prices. They are willing to use a batch of 3rd and 4th grade talismans to trade. They are also willing to give Old Forefather a 6th grade begonia lantern in tribute. Clear Sky Old Forefather said in a deep voice. 100 Flower Alliance are skilled in entering the path through flowers. I have heard of their begonia lantern before. It's not a bad talisman. However, they want gold element materials, not wood element materials? Yes, this disciple does not understand, but they are truly purchasing gold element materials, the sect leader responded. Clear Sky Old Forefather thought and then said, send them a reply. Find a place inside the Jia to open a market and sell Ling grains. Get 100 Flower Alliance to send a group of Xiao slaves. We will sell them to other people, and use Ling grains to purchase materials. Old Forefather is wise, the sect leader flattered. How many Ningmai disciples does our sect have? Old Forefather, there is 120 people. Too little. Clear Sky Old Forefather shook his head. Go recruit a group of Ningmai and make them the outer hall. Their job is to take care of the affairs of the Jia. Yes. You shall personally go to Sky Water Jia. Clear Sky Old Forefather thought and then said. You are to do 2 things on this trip. The first matter is to see if there is a chance to meet and ally with other factions. The other is to buy a secret paradise to become another home for the sect. Disciples of the sect who show promise shall all go to the second home to cultivate. If our sect can have a few more Jindan, this little mountain Jia will become our backyard. This disciple understands. The sect leader was full of admiration. Old Forefather was a visionary. If these matters could be accomplished, Clear Sky Sect's rule of Little Mountain Jia could not be shaken. The Ling energy of Little Mountain Jia had withered, but the mines had not been exhausted. It was more than enough for this one Jia to support Clear Sky Sect. Do not worry. I will stay and guard for you. Old Forefather waved his hand. Zuomo's vision was completely black, a rank odor continuously burrowing into his nose. Where was this? Had he died? That wasn't right, he hadn't died. After thinking for a while, he finally recalled fighting with the bloody-horned great serpent. That big guy was truly strong. Fear still lingered. Impulsiveness was really a flaw. Why had he not managed to control himself? He made a deep self-reflection, and built his resolution that he would turn and run the next time he met something like this. It had seemed as though that he had killed the big guy, he thought back uncertainly. Many of the memories were blurry. After thinking for a while, he had not discovered anything. Itchiness occurred all over his body, pulling him from his memories. His attention came back to the question of where he was. He did not move, but controlled his consciousness. After he started practicing embryonic breathing spiritual cultivation, it had become his habit to always use the consciousness to investigate when he encountered something. Why was it like this? If he did not clearly know that this was his body, he definitely would not believe the body in front of him had any connection to him. It was full of vitality, extremely dense vitality. The earth energy inside his body was so thick it was almost in liquid form, and flowed through every corner of his body. A blooming vitality, strong life force. Zuomo could clearly feel that intoxicating feeling. What shocked him anymore was that he could not find any bit of familiarity with the body. Blood, flesh, sinew, bone. It was completely unfamiliar. It was like a brand new body, a new and perfect body. At the same time, he found the shell that was tightly covering his body. So strange, why would he be inside a shell? He reflexively pushed out. Pia, the shell cracked. Light streamed through the crack. It was slightly blinding. Fresh air flowed into the shell. Zhuemo felt it was unspeakable pleasurable. He greedily breathed in and pushed out. Bam! The shell instantly shattered into pieces and flew in all directions. Zhuemo stood naked in the air. The fresh air, the bright light, it made him feel like he was reborn. It really was comfortable. He could not help but breathe in deeply. At this time, he finally noticed the golden armor guards standing nearby with their swords. So he had came back to camp. His heart relaxed. Suddenly he detected many people were flying near on the outside. It was Gongsun Shidi. He bent his head and scanned his bare body, instantly paling. Who took off Ji's clothes? He hurriedly found a set of Ling armor inside the ring and rapidly put it on. Just as he finished dressing, the door opened with a bang. Gongsun Cha rushed in with a group of people. Gongsun Cha narrowed his eyes. Who are you? Zhuemo stilled, his heart discontent. Shidi, you don't even recognize me? Gongsun Cha's expression froze on his face. The other people also had strange expressions like they had seen a ghost. The response from everyone made Zhuemo realize something. He unconsciously reached to touch his face. It was like his hand had been bitten by a snake, shrinking back lightning fast. His expression changed dramatically. This feeling was not right. Without another word, his hand flipped, and a ball of mist floated at the center of his palm, quickly turning to a smooth water mirror. Zhuemo was dumbstruck. Chapter 237. Reconstructing the body on the water mirror was an unfamiliar face. What the? Zhuemo jumped in fright, and then rubbed his face in curiosity before turning and inspecting in the mirror. After a long look, he made a final conclusion. All right, much better than before. His heart felt slightly reassured. A rock in his heart landed. This face was not handsome, but at least his nose was a nose, his mouth was a mouth. Truthfully, this face was slightly average, almost immature. Bald head, thick brows, and thick lips. His body was also thicker than before. He looked like a nice and obedient child. Was this what he had really looked like originally? He was puzzled, and then saw a puzzled expression on the face in the water mirror. He felt slightly unnatural. He had become accustomed in the past years to that zombie face that could never have an expression, and used to hiding his thoughts under that zombie face. Now his expressions had become more varied. The emotions inside naturally could be expressed on his face. He felt it was extremely strange. With curiosity and novelty, he stared at the unfamiliar yet vivid face in the water mirror. He decided to ask Pu Yao if this was his original appearance. This question was extremely important to him. Gongsun Cha looked at Zhuemo's hand, and when he saw the several dimensional rings, he released a breath. It really was Shixiang. Seeing Shixiang's appearance, he also knew that something had happened. At this time, Shixiang needed quiet. He made a silent gesture, and took everyone else to retreat out. Changing appearances was not a rare matter for Xiuzha. Once everyone left, Zhuemo entered the sea of consciousness and found Pu Yao. What happened? How come I look like this? Pu Yao glanced at him and sneered. Don't pretend in front of him. I had not expected the two of you to team up and scheme against me. Team up? Scheme. Zhuemo was confused. I do admire you. You really have guts. Reconstructing the body. Even those great MO may not dare to try. You really have the guts. I had underestimated you before. Reconstruct the body? Zhuemo's confusion grew. I had found it strange before why you would so easily agree to the drawing of earth energy so easily. Pu Yao narrowed his bloody pupil, speaking to himself. I should have thought of this earlier. How could you not know that my injuries needed earth energy? You were waiting for me here a long time ago. You are as cunning as you always were. Zhuemo was able to hear that Pu Yao's last two sentences evidently were not directed at him. He was not dumb. Listening to Pu Yao's words, he got a general understanding. Pu Yao's you should be the gravestone. The more he listened, the colder his heart became. He suddenly recalled the do as he asks. He had a feeling that Pu Yao's speculation was not unbased. Neither the Yao or the Steel were good people. But when he thought deeper, he quickly realized it. If it was not for this Yao and Steel, he would not have reached the level he was at now. He probably would not having even successfully entered Juji. It was like doing business. Each side had their own aims. Even the smallest of benefits would not drop down from the sky. As to risk, what business had no risk? I get the general gist of reconstructing the body, Swo directly asked. Is this my original appearance? His words not having the effect he intended, shock flashed across Pu Yao's mind. Didn't this guy hate being used the most? However, he did not linger on this question. It would cause the opposite effect if he said too much. Of course not. Pu Yao's answer was very definite. After reconstruction of the body, all of your appearance would change. The greatest cause of danger in this kind of MO skill is here. All the bone, blood and flesh of your body would be broken up, processed and then reformed, making up for your natural deficiencies, making a powerful body. Mo pointed at his face and said, in other words, this face now has no tincture of a connection with my previous one? Exactly. Pu Yao was slightly cheerful at the misfortune. Not just not having a connection at all, your entire body has been broken. All the remaining traces have completely been destroyed. In other words, the clues from before are gone now. Mo stilled. You had 3 clues in your hands. Changing features and erasing the mind would leave behind 2 clues. One was on your face, the other is on your spirit. There is one more, the 5-element glass bead in your body. Oh, you only have 2 clues now. Mo's expression was very strange, completely different than what Pu Yao had expected. He couldn't help but ask, are you not unhappy that you have 1 less clue? I'm all right. Mo's tone was slightly complicated. He shrugged his shoulders. At least I'm alive. This business is not unprofitable since I kept my little life. Pu Yao was speechless. What are the benefits of this body? Mo quickly came out of his emotions and asked with anticipation. Having heard the scarce words of Pu Yao, it seemed the new body was very powerful. Pu Yao's expression froze. He could not suppress it any longer, furiously shouting, I didn't do this, it's none of my business, before turning and leaving. Mo stilled, and then roared with laughter. He felt good about getting one over Pu Yao. The lingering depression in his heart sweeping away, leaving the sea of consciousness in a good mood, he suddenly thought of Zhongru. He remembered that Zhongru had fended off the last attack for him. If not for that shield, he would have been heavily injured. He hurriedly found Gongsun Shitty, and asked about Zhongru's injuries and then rushed over. Zhongru sat with his legs crossed, his face white as paper, his presence extremely low. Lei Peng and Nian Lu were worriedly sitting beside him. Seeing Mo come, the 2 of them hurriedly stood up. How are the injuries? Mo abruptly asked. Nian Lu grimaced. His channels were injured. It would take a period of time to recover. To heal channels, this is 3rd grade Spring Dew Dan, specifically for channel injuries. Oh, 3rd grade Primary Energy Dan. Not bad for recovering energies. 3rd grade Primary Replenishing Dan. Restoring the body. Nian Lu and Lei Peng gaped at the pile of Ling Dan. After seeing Zhongru, Mo remembered the rainbow mark butterfly that he had forgotten in the mountain valley. He called for the rainbow mark butterfly through the beast service card, but to his disappointment, the rainbow mark butterfly did not reply. If the energy of the rainbow mark butterfly was not still present, he would have assumed that the rainbow mark butterfly had died of poison. Since the rainbow mark butterfly was still alive, he felt slightly reassured. Without the use of rainbow pupil, the black poisonous mist inside the mountain valley was enough to take his little life. He instantly discarded the thought of going to inspect the mountain valley. He burrowed back into his room and started to investigate his new body. There was a question that puzzled Gongsun Cha. The 5th grade Ling beast was in the hands of the 2 Ningmai. It had to be said that 5th grade Ling beasts were able to enter the ranks of high-level Ling beasts. They were not something that Ningmai could command. How could it not be a puzzle how one appeared in the hands of 2 Ningmai? He was extremely attentive, and called Nian Lu and Lei Peng over to ask for the details. It's the Kong brothers. Luckily, he had Xieshan who was familiar with venerable cheese base. He explained. The Kong brothers had managed to discover a secret technique from somewhere. If the three work together, they can summon a 5th-grade bloody horn serpent. They were the strongest helpers of venerable Qi supposedly. The secret technique they found was not complete. The 5th-grade Ling beast they summon is not truly 5th grade, and can only be considered a quasi-5th grade beast. The reason that the bloody horned serpent escaped control might be related to us having killed Big Kong. Even Xieshan would never have thought that his speculations perfectly matched what had actually happened. Gong Suncha felt that it was plausible. To say of nothing else, the power of a 5th-grade Ling beast definitely was higher than 3 Ningmai Xiuzha. If this secret technique did not have any flaw, no one would have survived. Suddenly, someone hurriedly ran in. Head. The subordinates usually called Gong Suncha head, and Zwa Mo boss. What is it? Gong Suncha asked. He wondered inside, did something else happen? A female Xiu was floating in the river. The brothers pulled her out. Female Xiu. Gong Suncha stilled. It took a long time for him to react. After leaving Wukong Mountain, he had not encountered female Xiu again. In cultivation, there was no difference between female and male. Many sects even took only female disciples. The only type of cultivation that had a difference was probably the Dhyana Xiu, which cultivated their bodies. Females loved beauty, liked their skin snowy white, and had no interest in bronze skin and hard bones. Supposedly, Little Mountain Jia had female-only factions. Let's go see. Gong Suncha did not hesitate in saying. When Gong Suncha hurried to the camp, he quickly saw this female Xiu. More accurately, it was a wounded female Xiu. I say, she is just a bit too ugly. Gong Suncha did not realize how malicious his words were as he said in shock. Really? Xieshan agreed empathetically, nodding his head. The unconscious female Xiu was seriously injured, the hair flowing free, her entire body giving off a nasty smell. Her face was full of crusted scabies. She was dressed in a torn and white robe, not much different from a beggar. Her feet were bare, her legs patched in bruises. Zuemo had hurried over when he heard the news. His expression was serious due to Pu Yao's words. She's been infected with Yao poison. Yao poison? Zuemo's expression became slightly ugly. You mean that she was wounded by the Yao? Exactly. Pu Yao, who had felt that his status had become threatened lately, did not hold anything back anymore, not forgetting to show off at any time. This is a very common Yao poison, made from green thorn vine. They used this thousands of years ago. I hadn't thought they would still use it. At the end, he did not forget to review like he usually did. Did they live 1,000 years more for nothing? Zwa Mo did not pay attention to Pu Yao. He suddenly raised his head. Where did she float from? Xieshan stilled, and then ran to ask the Xiuzha who had discovered the female first. After a while, he pointed at a direction on the river. Floated from there. Gong Suncha also reacted at this time. The two of them exchanged a look. Sky Moon Jia. That direction, it was the direction of Sky Moon Jia. This female Xiu had escaped from Sky Moon Jia. The two of them were extremely shocked. Their present position was not far from the Jia River. However, this female Xiu was the first person that they had found who had escaped from Sky Moon Jia. Without a doubt, the Yao army had locked down the Jia River. It was not hard to accomplish. They only needed to send a troop to occupy Desolate Wood Reef, and then they could secure the Jia River. This female Xiu was very strong. Zwa Mo and Gong Suncha exchanged another look with the same idea, getting the other on their side. To say of nothing else, this female Xiu's power was not of a normal Ningmai to be able to break through the blockade. Even more, all of them came from Sky Moon Jia. This made the two people feel slightly closer to her. Having made a decision, Zwa asked Pu Yao, "How do you neutralize the poison?" Chapter 238, Sonic Lightning Walnut. How is it? Gong Suncha looked into the room, and then sat next to Zwa Mo. Zwa Mo shook his head. I don't know. She has been seriously wounded before, not just this once. It is a miracle that she is alive right now. He had some admiration for her. When he had inspected the female, He had been stunned by the dense layers of hidden wounds inside her body. Was this woman like Wei Xingxixiang, and also a battle maniac? It would be better if she looked prettier. Gong Suncha smacked his lips. Zuo was slightly surprised. Do you want to find a female Xiao? No, that's not it, Gong Suncha explained, his face serious. To be easy on the eyes. Tell me, what's so good about women? Why does everyone like them? Zuo recalled the paper crane female's illusory formation that made blood rise. Xixiang, you don't know this? Gong Suncha looked in disbelief at Zuo. Gong Suncha covered his forehead and sighed. He then adjusted his attitude to that of an experienced person and began to lecture Zuo in a heavy voice. Xixiang, I may not be as good as you in cultivation, but if we are talking about the understanding of women, this little brother has a little bit of skill. Zuo's mind became alert. He hurriedly said, tell me. Women, the most important part is beauty, beauty like jade, voice like the wind, with a tantalizing fragrance that one cannot pull themselves away. Gong Suncha's face was intoxicated, but he quickly said in a heavy voice, but Xixiang, you have to remember, you should just look at women. My master said that you can only look at women, but cannot touch them. We shall just look at them. Oh, so it's like that. Zuo nodded, still confused. It really is wonderful to meet someone from Sky Moon Jia. Gong Suncha sighed. There is only the three of us. It's better to have one more person. Zuo was silent as he thought of previous matters. After a while he asked, where's Cheng Shidi? Where else could he be? He's always at the beast pool. Soon he will accomplish his goal and cultivate into a ling beast. Hee, Gong Suncha mocked. It's good as long as he likes it. It might have been the string of occurrences recently, but Zuo had a much more open perspective on many matters. And Gong Suncha nodded. It would not be outrageous to say that their situation was a precarious one. They might have won a few victories, but these 100-something people could not rank up there in the entire little mountain Jia. What they were doing right now, was it not what they liked? The deepest impression he had after learning how to command was that he had wasted his days before. He suddenly thought of an urgent matter. Xixiang, where do you think this Yao army came from? Zuo was stilled, struck silent by Gong Suncha's question. He thought and said, probably Skywater Jia. Little Mountain Jia only has 2 Jia rivers. They could only have come from Skywater Jia. Gong Suncha's handsome face was full of worry. But if they came from Skywater Jia, would the Yao army have let go of Clear Sky Sect? When we were at Desolate Wood Reef, they didn't even say a thing before attacking. That was right. If the Yao army really came into Little Mountain Jia from Skywater Jia, any power that would have been guarding the Jia River would have been destroyed. Zuo didn't believe that the Yao army would make an exception for Clear Sky Sect. Maybe Clear Sky Sect had captured the Jia River entrance after the Yao army passed? Zuo thought of a possibility. I had asked Xiashan and the others, but the Clear Sky Sect has always guarded that place, Gong Suncha said. Zuo felt a wave of cold seep up from the bottom of his feet. Is there another entrance to Little Mountain Jia? I don't know. Gong Suncha shook his head. This question was extremely important. Zuo immediately went to find Pu Yao. Pu Yao said in a deep voice, the Yao army should have entered from a chaos rift. Chaos rift? What is that? Each Jia would have several entrances. The most frequently seen are the Jia rivers. But other than those passageways, there usually would be some very small rifts. These are chaos rifts. However, most Jia masters, after they have taken control of the Jia, would find these chaos rifts and seal them to prevent others from taking advantage of them. Pu Yao was very familiar with this kind of knowledge. Are there many chaos rifts? Zuo's expression was slightly ugly. If it really was a chaos rift, then that meant the Yao army could appear at any time. I don't know, Pu Yao said. Each Jia is different. However, there is one point. The reason that chaos rifts have the appellation of chaos is that the laws inside the rifts are chaotic and non-existent. The higher the level of cultivator, the greater the effect it has on them. Little Mountain Jia is one of the smallest kinds of Jia. If it really has a chaos rift, it probably could only allow Ningmai Xiuzha to pass through. Yaoma will be similarity constrained. Hearing this, Zhuo was completely certain the Yao army had entered Little Mountain Jie from a chaos rift. He had found it strange before that the Yao army's average cultivation had not been high despite the organization it showed. The individual strength had been comparable to Ningmai. So it was not that they did not want to send experts, but they could not send them. How do you find a chaos rift? Can we block it off? Zhuo asked with fear in his voice. A danger that was known but could not be seen was the easiest ones to cause terror. The surroundings of a chaos rift will usually have some attributes. Due to chaos which is not divided into yin and yang, not into the 5 elements. There would not be any earth energy, nor ling power. Xiao Yao and Mo will all be suppressed under chaos. Oh, it would also be empty and barren. No beast can survive in the area around a chaos rift. There will be no plants or animals, nothing living. Pu Yao streamed on. At the end he added, there are also some secret methods that can detect them, but I don't know them. Zhuo left the sea of consciousness. He narrated what Pu Yao had said. Gong Sun Cha was very calm. This answer was not far from his own speculations. He only asked a question. Is the area around the chaos rift suitable for ambush? Theoretically, it is very suitable. Pu Yao responded of his own initiative. However, he could only speak to Zhuo, but tell him to end the thought. Even the most exhausted lion is not one sheep can defeat. What he commands are the sheep of the sheep. Zhuo was speechless. However, he still tactfully passed on Pu Yao's words. Gong Sun Cha's expression was slightly ugly, but he also knew this was the truth. He was very clear about what the people under his command were like. Even though they had formed the beginnings of an army under his training, but it was far from being able to compete with a fully mature army like the Yao army. Zhuo also had no solutions for this problem. However, this also increased the determination of the two people to quickly defeat Clear Sky Sect's blockade. That was the only ray of hope for survival. Is there any news of Yin Fiend grounds? Zhuo asked. The power of the Yin fire bead was greater than he had imagined. Such a big monster as the bloody horned serpent had been turned to dust upon impact. It really was out of Zhuo's expectations, and increased his desire to find Yin Fiend lands. The strength of 5th grade Ling beasts were on the same level as Jindan. Even though the bloody horned serpent was only semi-5th level, but a power that could kill it would have some effect on a Jindan. Gong Sun Cha was also clear about the power of the Yin fire bead, and had been extremely attentive to this matter. He said, nothing yet, but I will focus on it. Right after getting rid of Venerable Chi's bunch, we got something good. What something good? Zhuo's mind became alert as he asked. A maturing 4th grade sonic lightning walnut tree. The fruit is almost mature. Venerable Chi had been guarding it all this time, but it landed in our hands. Gong Sun Cha smiled shyly. Sonic lightning walnut. 4th grade. Zhuo's eyes widened as he gasped. Seeing Shixiang drooling, Gong Sun Cha giggled. Yes. Shixiang's expression was so vivid now. Gong Sun Cha wanted to laugh. Zhuo rushed into Venerable Chi's mountain cave. The place was heavily guarded at the moment. Gong Sun Cha was also clear about the value of a 4th grade sonic lightning walnut. It was a treasure beyond any price. A stalk of a nondescript walnut tree twice the height of a person. The crown was filled with green fruits, the skin of which was covered in silver dots. There was no thickling energy, no blinding light. This tree looked extremely normal. It was hard for people to relate this tree to a 4th grade sonic lightning walnut tree. This Venerable Chi has some good eyesight. Normal people won't have recognized it. Zhuo greedily stared at the sparkling green fruits on the tree. Now it is all ours. Gong Sun Cha did not have a good understanding of the value of the sonic lightning walnut. He only knew that this tree was somewhat rare and very expensive. Zhuo Shixiang always was bursting with interest towards anything that was rare and could be sold for a good price. He himself was also very happy. He knew better than anyone else the expenses that was spent on the training he had ordered. He felt it was a good beginning that he could create revenue for Shixiang. Having had a sweet taste, Gong Sun Cha wondered if it was time to speed up the steps to create revenue. Pia, a mature fruit fell off the branch. Zhuo hurriedly put out a hand, the fruit flying into his grasp. He gently brushed with his hand and the skin and flesh was taken off, revealing the silvery sparkling walnut on the inside. This was the famed sonic lightning walnut. Zhuomo's eyes was intoxicated as he pulled the sonic lightning walnut in front of him. This sonic lightning walnut was slightly smaller than a normal walnut, appearing to have been made of pure silver. It was extremely heavy. The abundant creasing on the surface released the occasional spark of lightning. Zhuomo's hand was covered in a thin layer of Ling power. Otherwise, he would be injured by the lightning of the sonic lightning walnut. So this is the sonic lightning walnut? It's pretty beautiful. Gongsun Cha crowded over. This can probably sell for a good price. Sell. In a reversal of his usual attitude, Zhuo furiously shook his head. We aren't going to sell even one. This is something that you can't even buy if you had the Jingshi. His consciousness scanned the sparkling silvery sonic lightning walnut in his hand as he sighed inside. The sonic lightning walnut naturally contained abundant amounts of hard lightning. It was a natural talisman that could be used immediately. At present, Zhuo was lacking high attack power moves. These sonic lightning walnuts had come at the perfect time. With his thrifty and prudent personality, he naturally was not so stupid as to use the sonic lightning walnuts directly. He also quickly discovered that, while the sonic lightning walnut contained abundant hard lightning, but the kernel inside the hard husk could contain even more hard lightning. If hard lightning was used to continuously temper it, the power of the sonic lightning walnut would continuously increase. For other people it would not be easy to find hard lightning, but it was as simple for Zhuo as raising his hand. Yang Fiend Hard Lightning, a 4th grade hard lightning, was perfect for tempering the sonic lightning walnuts. Zhuo looked at the branches drooping with green fruits, and the strong feeling of happiness made him dizzy. Mine. All mine. The cave echoed with the balderdash of a miser. Chapter 239. Yao visiting Wukong. Compared to the past Wukong mountain, if one went there now, weeds grew all over the mountain. The Ling fields were barren. Occasionally, little wild animals poked their heads out from the weeds. It is in this area. Listening to the report from her subordinate, Mushi stepped on the overgrown path as she walked up the mountain. Which sect used to possess this site? She asked. It is a sword practicing sect called Wukong Sword Sect. The middle-aged man had clearly done large amounts of work, introducing in great detail. Wukong Sword Sect is one of the most accomplished sects of Sky Moon Jia. They became extremely famous in the last 2 years. At the beginning, they had 4 Jindan of unordinary power. Oh, such a little place, it is really abnormal to have 4 Jindan, Mushi said in surprise. Yan Feng sneered unconcernedly. Mushi ignored him and said to the middle-aged man, continue. These 2 years they have expanded extremely quickly. Presently, they have almost 10 Jindan in the sect. Surprise flashed through Mushi's eyes. Almost 10 Jindan? This time, surprise was also on Yan Feng's face. They were only the forward guard. Almost 10 Jindan would be enough to be of threat to them. He was arrogant, but having successfully came out of a Yao art house, he naturally was not stupid. Other than this, their second-generation disciples are extremely outstanding, dominating Sky Moon Jia. The eldest disciple Wei Xing entered Ningmai at 20, and his talent at the sword is even more astounding, having already reached the step of sword essence manifestation. Second disciple Zhuo is extremely skilled in formations. Third disciple Luo Li has also reached Ningmai, and created his own sword scripture self-separation. A very strong sect. Mushi's expression changed. In the past years, the Yao had increased their understanding of the Xiuzha. It would not be surprising for this information contained in the report to be referring to an intermediate-sized sect. But it really was astounding for it to be reported from a little sect in such a little and backwater Jia. Yan Feng also had a shocked expression. He had always been proud of his genius. He had been dealt a great blow by the news that someone had reached Ningmai when they were 20 years old, and had reached the level of sword essence manifestation. They walked to a lonely little wooden house. This little wooden house was extremely eye-catching. As they had walked up, weeds had covered everything. But the empty ground around this little wooden house was bare and had no weeds. Such an eye-catching and strange place naturally could not escape their eyes. Mushi stared at the little wooden house for a while, standing motionlessly at her spot. The other people saw that Mushi did not move, and did not dare to more either. Seeing the situation, Yanfeng snorted coldly, and did not hesitate to walk towards the wooden house. The middle-aged man couldn't help but look at Mushi with a questioning expression. Mushi waved her hand with a faint smile. When Yanfeng's right foot stepped onto the empty ground, his head rang, all the hairs on his body standing up on end. The scene in front of him suddenly changed. That normal-looking wooden house suddenly broke. Everything in the surrounding space seemed to collapse. An invisible force seemed to pull him downwards, countless sharp and intimidating sword essences pushing at him from all directions. He paled, then his eyes turned bright red, flames erupting all over his body. He gathered all the energy in his body, and pulled his body out to retreat. As he left the empty ground, the frightening scene disappeared. The invisible force, the sword essences, they were like illusions. Yanfeng swallowed in terror, not daring to put away the flames on his body as he looked with fear at the lonely little wooden house. This is the site of cultivation for a very powerful sword shio. Mushi slowly walked beside him, and opened. Every bit of the ground here has been permeated with sword essence for a long time. It is vicious and sharp, nothing can grow here. Each step that you take forward, the sword essence grows stronger. At the end, there is only two endings. One is that you are torn to pieces by the sword essences. The other is all the sword essences have been destroyed by you. Yanfeng's complexion was pale. Since they had entered Little Mountain Jia from the Chaos Rift, it had been smooth sailing, and he had not encountered any proper resistance, causing him to have a low opinion of Xiuzha, assuming that the Xiuzha were just so. Only now did he suddenly realize, to his shock, that the strong masters of the Xiuzha were so terrifying. Yanfeng's unusual silence greatly satisfied Mushi. She did not do this just because of Yanfeng. She had discovered a mood of underestimating the enemy, invading the ranks earlier. This was fatal to a vanguard that had entered the deep of the enemy. Her subordinates looked with shock at the barren ground and the wooden house. She turned, and saw the pride in her subordinates' eyes had faded greatly before she asked the middle-aged man expressionlessly, "Are there any potential targets?" The middle-aged man said respectfully, "From the time of the stars in daytime, the time that Darren had came to Wukong Sword Sect, should have been before Wukong Sword Sect's expansion. Before their expansion, there were not many people in Wukong Sword Sect. Since Darren had caused the stars in daytime, this Darren probably was seriously wounded. With that, it is unlikely that Darren had taken over a Jindan's body. What is more likely are the second-generation disciples." Mushi did not interrupt. After he finished, she thought and then asked, "Who do you feel is most suspicious?" Wei Sheng. The middle-aged man did not hesitate. "Why? Wei Sheng is the most talented, and can give Darren the greatest aid." Mushi shook her head. "I do not think so. If you are wounded and have to hide in someone's body, what would you consider?" Hearing this, the middle-aged man became silent for a moment before saying, "In this subordinate's view, the first is safety, the second is to speedily recover." "You are not wrong," Mushi said, then continued. "Wei Sheng's talent is the greatest, and the primary target of the sect's attention. It is easy to slip up if one is not careful. Therefore, residing in his body is not a wise choice. If it was me, I would choose Zuo or Luoli. They are not as attention-catching as Wei Sheng, yet they also received good support. It is also certain that the attention they receive is less than Wei Sheng. No matter if the goal is either to control or to tempt, it is much easier." The middle-aged man was full of admiration. "Darren is wise. Where is Wukong Sword Sect now?" "Supposedly they have already moved to Bright Wave Jia," the middle-aged man answered. He had an expression of difficulty while he spoke. "With our strength, it is unlikely that we can take down Bright Wave Jia." Mushi was not angry, smiling and saying, "Bright Wave Jia is an intermediate Jia. Of course, we cannot conquer it. Our mission has almost been completed. Take the information you have gathered, and our speculations to make a report. Just send it back. There will be people who will naturally take care of the rest." "Yes," the middle-aged person said respectfully. Yanfeng's expression had recovered. When he heard Muxi's words, he was still somewhat discontent. Then what are we doing here? Us. Muxi smiled. After working for so long, it's time for a vacation. Yanfeng was speechless. Zuomo's body was filled with strength. This new body gave him too many unfamiliar surprises and feelings. It progressed extremely rapidly in body cultivation. Without too much effort, he had entered the stage of 3 mountains. As he moved, he felt his entire body was filled by a bountiful power. It was an extremely pleasurable feeling. What surprised him the most was the MO matrix Pu Yao had carved into his body had completely disappeared when his body had been reconstructed this time. However, for some unknown reason, there were some new formation-like patterns on his body. These patterns were not as complex or as strange as the MO matrix appeared, but was filled with a kind of man-made formation beauty. However, Zuo-Mo was still uncertain as to whether these patterns were formations. They required time to study. Other than his body cultivation that reached 3 mountains, the other breakthrough was his abhina, which had not formed for a long time. His abhina was related to his eyes. This had not changed when he had changed into a new body. Ling Eye. The only ability of Ling Eye was to detect the flow of Ling energy. He was not able to use Ling Eye for a very long time at the moment, because his eyes would become extremely dry and sore. But even so, Ling Eye was a great surprise to him. Maybe other people would not care about Ling Eye, but for him, Ling Eye was perfect. It was a great boon to him to be able to see the flow of Ling energy when he studied formations. There were many explanations for the abhina. Diana Xiu thought that it was wisdom from Samadhi. The abhina was wisdom. Pu Yao scorned this explanation. He thought it was the awakening of the base source of power of the flesh. But there was a point that both sides were in a strange consensus on. An abhina would grow. However, no matter if it was Zhongru or Pu Yao, they did not know how to cultivate an abhina. Zuo-Mo was not in a rush. He still had the simplest and stupidest method, learning through familiarity. When he had the time, he would use the Ling Eye, and only stop when it was too sore to bear. The reconstruction of his body had given him improvement in all areas. Other than body cultivation and the abhina, the improvement in all other areas were extraordinary. The new Ling channels were even stronger, and grown wider by half of what they were before. The bones were like jade, strong as steel. The muscles were like metal, hardness concealed within the flexibility. Every time he inspected his new body, Zuo-Mo could not help but sigh. Strangely, he felt awe towards the gravestone. Such an astonishing method. It could be called uncanny craftsmanship, like stealing the sky and changing the sun. He could not think of what kind of person could have such ability. This ability completely destroyed all he knew. However, he put this awe deep into his heart. He cultivated without rest or food. Right now he had such good conditions. If he wasted it, it would be so unprofitable. The talent that this new body had was something he could not imagine before. Just as Zuo-Mo was furiously cultivating, Gongsun Cha took the group of Xiuzha and started a similarly furious expansion. In 3 months, Gongsun Cha took the group of Xiuzha and went through 4 hard battles. In the hardest battle, even Ma Fan and Xie Shan were wounded. Even Gongsun Cha was almost killed. But this battle had completely awoken the madness under Gongsun Cha's shy and delicate appearance. Just as everyone's wounds had healed, he took 15 battle units, chased for 800 li, conquered a faction, and captured 80 Xiuzha. After 4 fierce battles, the number of Xiuzha on Gongsun Cha's hands quickly grew to an unprecedented 450 people. With one step, they became the biggest power within 3,000 li lil. Mrs. Infamy quickly spread. The strong offensive power displayed by this faction of mysterious origins made people look. After a string of dazzling fights, everyone understood this troop was not a friendly one. In an area 3,000 li in diameter, all the scattered Xiuzha had been swept away by Gongsun Cha, and he did not leave behind one. In other words, in this enormous area, other than Gongsun Cha and the others, there was no one in any other place. However, after a succession of victories, Gongsun Cha's mood was extremely terrible because he heard a piece of news. Chapter 240. What was going on? Gong Sun Cha found Zhuo and faithfully told him the news he had received. The further he listened, the uglier Zhuo's expression became. This clear sky sect is truly too evil. They want to use all of Little Mountain Jie to feed only them. Zhuo was extremely furious, but he quickly calmed down. We need to move faster. The longer it takes, the harder the days will get. When this outer hall of theirs truly stabilizes, they would have many fighters. If we want to charge out, it would be much harder. And Gong Sun Cha nodded his head heavily, a flash of anger in his eyes. Clear Sky Sect's actions was equal to farming the Xiuzha of Little Mountain Jie, as though they were ling beasts. When it was time, they would be no different than those Xiu slaves. I have a solution, Zhuo said after some thought. What solution? Gong Sun Cha asked hurriedly. They sell ling grains, will sell black processing meditation mats. Gong Sun Cha was slightly puzzled and spoke. Wouldn't it be too much of a waste if we sell the black processing meditation mats to them? At that time, the price of Jingshi in Little Mountain Jie would inflate dramatically. Sell. Zhuo said hatefully. We won't just sell, we'll sell in large quantities. As long as the black processing meditation mats are sold, the noose on everyone's necks would not be so tight. If Clear Sky Sect cannot finish establishing the status quo, all of their past effort would be for nothing. When Clear Sky Sect discovers that it is us who ruined their business, they would definitely come to our doors. Wait at leisure while the enemy labors. This way, we can set a trap for them. A strong dragon does not suppress the local snakehead. On our territory, it isn't up to them how things are done. Gong Sun Cha's eyes instantly lit up. The two of them discussed for a long time inside the room, dark snickers occasionally passing out of the room. Lei Peng, Xieshan, and the others found to their surprise that Head's mood today was very good. The shadow on his face seemed to have been swept away. Usually, when Lil Miss' mood was good, everyone had easier days. However, before they had time to be happy, they heard Lil Miss announce that, from today onward, training was multiplied. Wails rang out into the landscape. Fortunately, the Xiuzha who made it through the cruel battles were not resistant to harsh cultivation. Truthfully, what everyone wanted the most was access to that sword formation. Every Xiuzha that came out of the formation would go into seclusion. Up until now, several had comprehended sword essence after entering the sword formation. Something this good that went against the common knowledge was naturally very tempting to many. However, there were too many monks yet not enough porridge. The sword formation only allowed for one person to cultivate at a time. Gong Sun Cha had a headache over the matter, and could only use it as a part of the rewards for service. Seeing the busy camp, Gong Sun Cha sighed. If there was more time, he would definitely have made a true elite force. It was a pity what they lacked the most was time. When they charged out of Little Mountain Jie, he would find Xixiang, and make a true troop. Having tasted what it was like to be a battle general, it would be really bland if he had to do something else. However, what was going to happen next really filled him with anticipation. After giving many matters to Gong Sun Shidi, the amount of matters Zhuo had to attend to made his scalp prickle. The crux of this plan was black processing meditation mats, and large amounts of them. It was not difficult to make black processing meditation mats, but the volume was too large. In the recent while, Zhuo had used up all the spare time he had outside out of cultivation to make black processing meditation mats. The amount needed now was much higher, and he did not have an assistant. He needed to complete all of the work by himself. This clearly was not realistic. He decided to pick some Xiuzha, who had the basics of forging from the camp to help him. What surprised him was that there were more than 50 people of the 450 who knew the fundamentals of forging. Zhuo only understood after he asked. These Xiuzha mostly had no sect, and after they entered Ningmai, they naturally had good days. However, before they entered Ningmai, they were no different than any other low-level Xiuzha. Basically, everyone had a skill. Ling farming, animal husbandry, forging, etc. Zhuo and Gong Sun Cha gaped at the variety. However, even though most of them had learned the basics and had spent longer on forging than Zhuo had, but due to the lack of a systematic education, they had only done some very basic jobs. After Ningmai, they had not done much. There were two who were exceptions. One of them was called Ji Wei, the other Sun Bao. The two had made a living from forging before the change in Little Mountain Jia. Their skill in forging was much higher than Zhuo Mo treasured the two of them when he found them. He even managed to take out the golden crow fire, and allowed the two of them to absorb it. It was like the two of them had been hit with Jingshi from the sky. They were so happy they almost fainted. Golden crow fire. This was golden crow fire. The two had schemed and made countless efforts, but had never found a fire seed that could satisfy them. So when Zhuo Mo threw each of them a mini box and told them that a thread of golden crow fire was sealed inside, their hands shook so much they almost dropped the boxes. Other than happiness, the two deeply felt the importance boss placed on them. It was not a joke. This was golden crow fire. 4th grade fire seed. The fire seed that any person in forging or dam making dreamed about. Yet before the two of them were able to feel smug, they saw Zhuo Mo pick out 10 more people with the highest skill in forging, and give each of them a mini box. Ji Wei and Sun Bao were dumbstruck, their expressions as though they had seen a ghost. It was not just them. When the 10 people had been picked out, they had been looking with admiration at the two. Now they were holding the mini box, a stunned expression on their faces, their minds completely blank. The remaining Xiozha were also completely stunned. The temperature of the room rose dramatically. Work hard. Zhuo Mo waved his hand like a show-off. Taking in everyone's gazes, it was like he had eaten ginseng fruit, his entire body unspeakably comfortable. There was no way around it. Ji just has a lot of golden crow fire. This group of Xiozha that had been dissatisfied at having been transferred over to a new troop started to furiously work, as though they had been shot with chicken blood. Their enthusiasm with work made Zhuo Mo jump in fright. They wouldn't die from working this hard, right? Zhuo Mo taught the formations of the black processing meditation mat to Ji Wei and Sun Bao. When Zhuo Mo finished teaching them, the two were motionless as though they were two pieces of rock. From then on, the two had truly been convinced. Zhuo Mo concentrated solely on his work. When he raised his head in rest, he noticed that a person was standing in the doorway. He gave a surprised expression, and stopped what he was doing. "You woke up?" asked Zhuo Mo. The other person was just standing there. He didn't know how long it had gone on. This female Xiao stood there woodenly as though she had not heard him speak. Had she become stupid due to her injuries? Zhuo Mo muttered inside. "What are you called?" he probed. The female Xiao did not respond. "Did your injuries really turn you stupid?" Zhuo Mo rubbed his chin as he thought. He decided to try one more time. "Are you hungry?" The female Xiao still did not react. Seeing the female Xiao's face that was full of scabies, Zhuo Mo was suddenly filled with empathy. He remembered his past zombie face. When she had been unconscious, Zhuo Mo had checked. Her face did not have any disguise. The scabies on her face were caused by a certain kind of poison inside her body. Adding on the new and old inner wounds that could not be counted, Zhuo Mo felt it was a miracle she was still alive. After the last try had failed, Zhuo Mo had a bit of headache and could only give up. "Do whatever you want." He didn't feel the other understood, but right now he had too many things to do. Even though the creation of the black processing meditation mat had been basically given to other people, but he still had other work. Any complete plan was constructed of many conditions. He decided to do his own work. When he turned to leave, he heard footsteps behind him. This female Xiao followed behind him without a word. Zhuo Mo instantly felt his temples start to hurt. "Hey, there's no Jingshi you can earn by following me. I don't have the time to play with you. Go play by yourself. There really is no Jingshi to be earned. I'm warning you, if you don't stay far away, I won't be polite to you." Zhuo Mo pretended to cast a spell. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the female Xiao's movement, and his pupils suddenly expanded. The other had also raised a hand. A light flashed at her fingertip. The air in the surroundings suddenly became sticky. "Motherfucker." Zhuo Mo's soul almost ran out of his body. He hurriedly released the Ling power in his hands, hurriedly saying, "Let's just talk. Let's just talk." The female Xiao still did not say a word, but followed Zhuo Mo, the light at her fingertip dissipating. As she lowered her arm, the air in the surroundings returned to normal. Such a powerful little girl. Pu Yao's shocked sigh sounded in Zhuo Mo's mind, But when Zuo heard it, it clearly had a hint of laughing at his misfortunes. Zuo had no solution. He basically could not communicate with this female Xiao. As to attacking, when he thought of that terrifying light, Zuo's heart shook. The last bit of hope was destroyed. If you want to follow, then follow. At the end of his rope, Zuo muttered, "Ha ha ha ha." Pu Yao's roaring laughter and the silence from the female Xiao made Zuo suddenly feel that life was dark. The Xiaojia in the surrounding all looked with fear at the female Xiao behind Zuo. The strength that the female Xiao had just displayed made everyone jump. Zuo perceptively noticed that in these people's eyes, other than terror and fear, there was a hint of disgust. Zuo suddenly felt uncomfortable inside. But he also knew this was a normal response. When he had first seen the female Xiao, he had also been frightened by the scabies on her face. He randomly picked out a black ore from the pile of material and summoned the golden crow fire before throwing the ore inside. The burning golden crow fire instantly melted the ore into a puddle of red metal liquid. Zuo's mind moved, and it appeared as there was an invisible force that pulled the metal liquid. The metal liquid slowly changed shape. The female Xiao stared at the golden crow fire and metal liquid. After a while, a mask appeared on Zuo's hands. The black mask was very plain. There were no patterns or decorations. What was most strange was the ratio was slightly off. The right and left sides of the mask were not symmetrical. Zuo instantly felt slightly embarrassed. "Oh, first time making a mask, my hand was raw. Oh, let's redo it." He was just going to remake one when a great force passed into his hands from the mask, and then the mask flew into the hands of the female Xiao. The female Xiao put on the mask. "Oh, let's remake that one." Zuo rubbed his hands and said embarrassedly. The right and left sides really were not symmetrical. Heavens! He had made such an elementary mistake. Looking at the strange looks from the subordinates in the surroundings, he wanted to find a hole in the ground and hide in it. This was a great embarrassment. The female Xiao did not say a word, and seemed to not have any intentions of taking off the mask. Seeing the situation, Zuo perceptively gave up on his plan of making another one. He tried to do his own work and found the female Xiao did not disturb him. She only stood there like a person made out of wood. Zuo gradually became used to her. However, there was a question that was swirling in his mind. What was going on? Chapter 241 City Construction Nansheng Village. The damaged walls had been reconstructed, and it only took a span of a few months for this place to recover its prosperity. Large numbers of Xiaojia had been transported over. This place also purchased all kinds of ore and other materials, but most importantly, this place sold ling grains, but it was limited. Just this was enough to cause all of Little Mountain Jie to shake. Just as all of Little Mountain Jie's eyes were on Nansheng Village, a crowd of people appeared soundlessly in a mountain valley. "We've searched. There are 2 Jingshi mines here. The Jingshi produced here is not high, only 3rd grade. This area used to belong to Sky Star Sect. Sky Star Sect did not manage to avoid the calamity, and there were heavy fatalities. The other people have disappeared. Other than Jingshi mines, there are 3 more mines in this area. They do not produce much. The primary product is bright flash rock, black ling stone bead, and greenwater stone. The primary producer of greenwater stone comes from that pond right there. It is called Sky Star Lake." Xieshan had done a large amount of work to research all of this. Zuo gave a satisfied expression. "Let's choose this place." He then asked, "What about the surrounding powers? Have they been investigated?" Gongsun Cha smiled shyly and timidly. "They have all been destroyed." It was not the first time he saw Gongsun Cha smile shyly like a teenage boy. But the coldness in Xieshan's heart still could not be controlled. Gongsun Cha's trademark timid smile was called Lil Miss Slight Smile in the camp, and all of them were afraid of it as though it was a snake or scorpion. The female Xiao wearing the black mask stood behind Zuo. This female Xiao that had suddenly appeared had attracted everyone's attention. However, no one dared to challenge her. Even Xieshan was intimidated by her powerful strength. Xieshan, whose cultivation had reached Ningmai 3rd statum, and was a step away from Jin Dan, but even he did not have the courage to face the mysterious female Xiao. Many people had been secretly speculating if the female Xiao was a Jindan. No one dared to ask, even Boss could not get her to speak. No one believed their face was bigger than Boss. Looking at the female Xiao that was always steps from the Boss, they felt that his was pretty good. With such a powerful guard, Boss wouldn't encounter any danger. This meant they did not have to worry that Boss would accidentally die, and they would collectively die as well. Dying without understanding why was an extremely depressing thought. Zuemo did not have a solution to her following him. The female Xiao was of unknown origins, and Zuemo naturally did not want her to overhear such secret information. But there was no way around it. The difference between their strengths was too large. His resistance was not effective. Even someone like Pu Yao praised her with powerful. Her martial strength quickly rose in Zuomo's mind to an unprecedented level. In his memory, Pu Yao had never called someone powerful. Unable to communicate and not daring to attack. This was like the mouse pulling the turtle, unable to do a thing. Zuomo decided to let it go, pretending that she was air, as he went about his own business. The only thing worth celebrating was that she did not speak, nor make a fuss. Other than being slightly creepy, there were no other inconveniences. He found it strange. He didn't believe that she was going to help him for the rest of her life, because he had saved her. But no matter how puzzled he was, it was clear that he would not find out the truth at the moment. So he could only go with the flow. If the other held malicious aims against him, no one in the camp could stop her. Zuemo could only comfort himself like so. He decided to put his attention on what was in front of him. In other words, this is ours now? And Gong Sun-cha nodded his head, and then added, no one to compete with us. At the side, Xieshan almost choked on air. That was a waste of words. Of course no one was competing with them. Gong Sun-cha had taken the group and conquered an area 2,000 li in circumference. All of the powers had been plucked out one by one like they were nails. Even the Xiozha who were hiding in the caves had not been let off. Lil Miss had sent out many small teams that combed the entire area. Great! Zuomo's eyebrows danced. The people around him that were used to seeing his zombie face felt extremely unadjusted. Boss' face was more and more lively. As they muttered inside, Xieshan and the others waited for Boss' next words. After Lil Miss had left Boss' place last time, the series of signs had shown that Boss was going to do something big. It had to be said that Gong Sun-cha had been very successful in his transformation of this group of lawless ruffians. The string of victories had increased their confidence, and the harder battles had tempered them, and helped them complete the transformation. This troop, having been affected by a battle maniac like Gong Sun-cha, always showed great offensive strength and desire for battle. Having guessed that there was something big coming up, this group of people were full of anticipation. Reality proved their speculation was correct. Lil Miss had personally led the troops and carried out a blitzkrieg operation. All the powers in the area 2,000 li in circumference around Sky Star Mountain were almost all taken out in the span of one night. This was exhilarating for this group of battle maniacs. The series of performance rewards, especially the spots for the sword formation, caused everyone to yearn about finding another eyesore and having a big battle. Then let's build a city. Zuomo sent down the order, but Xieshan and the others stared at each other. Boss, you said to build a city? Xieshan probed. Yes, build a big city. We are going to stay here for a while, Zuomo said in a matter-of-fact voice. But we don't know how to build a city. Xieshan frowned. Zuomo rubbed his chin. Oh, that is a problem. Very quickly, the camp received a second round of skill selection. With the example of the first round of selection before them, the qualifying round this time filled many people with anticipation since the reward from the first round had been a very enviable one. 4th grade Golden Crow Fire. But quickly, everyone exchanged looks in silence. Build a city. The ending was no one knew how. A headache instantly started. He knew how to make formations, but setting up formations and building a city were two different things. If the plan failed now, he would not be satisfied. He said to Gong Sun-cha, send some people out to investigate where there are Xiozha who know how to build cities. If they find one, no matter the method, they have to get the person back here. The first thing Gong Sun Cha did after returning was to gather everyone together. Who knows where there would be Xiuzha that know how to build cities? After continuous battle, the number of Xiuzha in the camp had rolled like a snowball and reached 730 people. However, the true core of power, and the ones with highest attack power, were the 100 or 200 people that had been there since the beginning. The remaining Xiuzha needed time in order to become offensive fighters. The benefit of more people was more information. As expected, several people provided some related information. Gong Sun Cha instantly sent people out to investigate immediately. The cataclysm in Little Mountain Jia had been very severe. Much of the information that had been provided were things they had known from before. Many were useless information that needed to be further investigated. Just as Zhua Mo and the others were in a panic, Nansheng village had opened. He Xiang looked at the waves of people on the street with ambition. He felt his future prospects were a road of light. When he had heard that Clear Sky sect had been hiring for the outer hall, he had went over at the first possible time. After having survived so laboriously in Little Mountain Jia for so long, no one knew better than he did what the Xiuzha here needed, and were willing to pay for it. He had especially provided large amounts of suggestions to the sect, and received a good appraisal from the old forefather. He had personally been appointed by the old forefather as the chief elder, and became one of the most important people in Little Mountain Jia in one step. He had not failed old forefather's hopes. He worked hard and diligently. His contribution in helping reconstruct Nansheng village in just a few months could not be erased. A few days ago they had tried to sell Ling grains. However, that was just the beginning. What would come next were the interactions with the different factions. That was the most important part of this battle, which had no death. As long as he could handle these interactions cleanly, no one could shake his position as chief elder of the outer hall. With the great weapon of Ling grains in his hand, he was full of confidence about the upcoming battle. Sky Moon Jia, a nondescript mountain valley, was abnormally silent. A figure landed from the sky. In a blink, it disappeared into the mountain valley. This Xiuzha then appeared at the bottom of the valley. The bottom was covered in dense layers of jinji that would make people's scalp prickle. It continued on for a long distance, and it was possible to see that the person who set down the jinji was an expert. It was not possible to see a hint from outside the valley. This Xiuzha made his practice way through the alarming jinji without even looking. With a few twists and turns, he headed straight to a cliff face. The cliff face rippled and the person disappeared. The scene instantly changed inside. A seemingly borderless grass plain, a winding river. No one would have ever thought that such a large grass plain could be hidden in a mountain valley. Secret realm. If someone saw such a strange place, they would have shouted in shock. This was a secret realm. Entering the secret realm, this Xiuzha's expression instantly lightened. The thick Ling power made him feel unspeakably comfortable. He flew straight towards the big river. There was a camp there. A few Xiuzha flew out of the camp in welcome. Haha, you came back. The Xiuzha in the welcoming entourage smiled as he gave a greeting. Must have been difficult. No way about it. The Xiuzha who had just flown in said helplessly. Got stuck with this mission. You guys have it easy. It seems you have made pretty good progress. Haha. All of the Xiuzha had proud expressions. In the time you were gone, another 2 people entered Ningmai. The Ling energy here is just too thick. That's so good. This Xiuzha was somewhat jealous. After this mission, you don't have to worry and can just cultivate. Hehe, that's true. Quick, leader is waiting for the news. And the people instantly increased their speed as they flew towards the camp. After landing, this Xiuzha instantly went to a tent. Come in. A deep male voice. He hurriedly walked into the tent and respectfully bowed to the male inside. Darren, I have come back. It must have been great trouble for you. The male inside the tent raised his face and said in a warm tone. If Zhuamo saw this person, he would definitely recognize who it was. Bo Feng, the mysterious competitor that had appeared at the sword test conference, a person of mysterious power. It had been him who had bought the location of the secret sect from Zhuamo. He had actually stayed behind in Sky Moon Jia. Chapter 242, Bao Yi, when did Nansheng village become this prosperous? Lei Peng looked around, full of curiosity. It was not just him. The other people were also looking around with curiosity. The news that Clear Sky Sect was opening a market at Nansheng village had passed through Little Mountain Jia already. The intentions of Clear Sky Sect was clear in everyone's minds. However, the situation was stronger than the people, and resistance would be ineffective. Large numbers of Xiuzha flooded Nansheng village, causing Nansheng village to become the most prosperous area of Little Mountain Jia. This was of great help to Lei Peng and his procession. From every angle, their procession was not too eye-catching. The leader was Xieshan. Xieshan had past experience as a leader, and he was skilled in creating relationships with people. Gongsun Cha had appointed him as the leader of the troop for this mission. After seeing the many wonders of boss and head, and after multiple bloody battles, Xieshan's mentality had changed greatly. The little thoughts that he had before had faded. He was clear that even if he was the leader, he could not reach the present level of success. Lei Peng and the others were willing to follow Zuomo not because they had been conquered by Zuomo's dominating aura, but because they found that their present lives were better than before. For the great majority of people, this was enough. The procession was 15 people. The person with the highest cultivation was Xieshan, Ningmai third stratum. The person with the lowest cultivation was Nian Lu, Ningmai second stratum. At a glance, this group did not show any signs of power. But Xieshan was full of confidence in the mission this time. All 15 people were old-timers of the camp, and were very good at teamwork. But what made him so confident was that all 15 people, including him, had comprehended essence. Xieshan had led many Xiuzha before, and had never encountered such a strong group. No, he had never even heard of one. There wouldn't be so many Xiuzha that had comprehended essence in Clear Sky Sect's disciples. 15 Xiuzha that had comprehended essence. This was definitely a terrifying amount of power. He felt strangely excited every time he thought that he was leading such a group. Before the appearance of the sword formation, there had only been 5 Xiuzha in the camp that had comprehended sword essence. Up until now, there had been 30 people that had gone into the sword formation, and 9 that had comprehended essence. Of the 9, 8 had comprehended sword essence, and Lei Peng, who practiced a saber scripture, comprehended a saber essence. The one with the most unique situation was Zhongru. Zhongru had recovered from his previous wounds, and naturally comprehended fist essence. He was the only person of the group who had comprehended essence, without going through the sword formation. This was another reason why these people were willing to follow Zuomo. Nothing could be more persuasive to these people than the increase in strength. Why did they join big sects? It was to increase their strength, and break through at an earlier time. Due to personality issues, most of these people had negative experiences with other sections. They were very clear of the scheming and plotting that occurred inside the bigger sections. In the camp, as long as you put your best into train, and were not afraid of death when you fought, you would receive a corresponding reward. With spells, talismans, the sword formation, and formations, everyone's strength was flying ahead. These 15 Xiuzha who had comprehended essence were the elite fighters of the camp. Xieshan believed that as long as they did not encounter a Jindan, their safety was guaranteed. Xieshan did not worry about the problem of safety at all. What he was thinking about was if he could finish the mission more beautifully. But before that, he planned on visiting a familiar acquaintance of his. This old acquaintance of his was called Bao Yi, who was a black market businessman that could buy anything. Before, he could always get some ling grains, and was famed in the profession. Boss Bao, Xieshan cheerfully gave a greeting. To avoid attracting unnecessary attention, he had come alone. Bao Yi was both thin and tall like a stick of bamboo. When he saw Xieshan, his eyes instantly lit up as he said in a warm voice, "Het Xie, what wind blew you here? Come in, please sit. Please sit." He had made a few transactions with Xieshan before. The two of them were quite familiar with each other. He knew that Xieshan had about 100 people under his command. Customers like this were primary targets of attention. However, it had been quite a long time since Xieshan had come. He had actually feeling that it was a pity since he had assumed that Xieshan had been killed. He hadn't expected the other man to still be alive. For him, this was a good matter. Why is it so empty here? As Xieshan walked in, he looked around and asked in puzzlement. Bao Yi's face instantly wrinkled. Oh, there's nothing to do. Now that Clear Sky Sect has come to directly trade, the business of us little people have become harder. Oh, isn't the Clear Sky Sect doing large business? Bao Yi explained. Clear Sky Sect only does transactions with big factions, but it is impossible for anyone to do business with small groups. Without jade discs, it is impossible to buy ling grains. With Boss Bao's skill, getting a few jade discs should be easy. Now Xieshan was really puzzled. Bao Yi's network was extremely complex and broad. He had ties with people from all levels of society. It should not be hard for him to get a few jade discs. Bao Yi grimaced. When a person is unlucky, they will even choke on water. The chief, elder of Clear Sky Sect Outer Hall, he's young, and I had a little conflict in the past. Xieshan finally understood. He acted to frown. So it's like that. Then this won't be easy to do. Yes, exactly. Bao Yi's face was mournful as he sighed. I had come to Nansheng to see if there were any good opportunities. It's a coincidence that Boss Xie is also here. After 2 more days I'm leaving. He managed to rouse his spirits. Does Boss Xie want to buy something? I have a bit left, not too much, but the quality isn't bad. If Boss Xie is interested, I can give a price and you can take the lot. Xieshan's mouth continued to talk as his mind whirled furiously. If Boss wanted to build a city, then he wanted to do something big. He was not ignorant. He knew that it was not so easy to build a city. This Bao Yi might be a bit black-hearted, but he was an expert at business who also had hate towards Clear Sky Sect. It was the first time Xieshan had been given an important task. Naturally, he wanted to perform well. If he could accomplish a great service, Boss probably would not refuse him if he went and asked for a thread of golden crowfire. The mission this time was to find Xiozha that knew how to build a city, but if he could find some more talents, wouldn't his service be greater? He had been a leader for a period of time, and naturally understood more as to how to think of problems from the perspective of a leader. Seeing Xieshan did not seem to be interested in his wares, Bao Yi's heart became even more bitter. This recent while, the matter of Xiang and he having previously had a conflict had somehow passed around. His business had instantly dropped and no one came to his doors. How could he not know what had gone on in the shadows? If this place does not want to keep ye, there naturally are places that can keep ye. Old Bao, there's nothing to be said about your abilities. We've made more than one transaction before, and we know each other very well. What about it? Do you have any interest in helping this brother? Xieshan smiled cheerfully as he looked at Bao Yi. Bao Yi gazed with slight shock at Xieshan. Xieshan had spoken so plainly that he knew what it meant. But it was that bluntness that shocked him. Xieshan might have 100 people, but in Little Mountain Jia, that was only a little faction. Right now his tone was so grand. Had Xieshan struck it rich? He was very familiar with Xieshan and knew that Xieshan was not an arrogant and irrational person. As he thought inside, Bao Yi asked in return, does Boss Xie not care about worsening your relationship with Clear Sky Sect? Xieshan chuckled. Old Bao, don't probe. I dare to say this because I have some certainly. Bao Yi's expression became slightly wary. If this little brother goes, what will I do? Of course it is to do your old occupation business. Xieshan thought for a beat before saying, however, I don't dare to promise you. It depends on what Boss is going to say. Boss. Bao Yi was shocked. There was someone else behind Xieshan. It definitely would not be a weak power if it had managed to take in Xieshan. He examined Xieshan, and saw the confidence that naturally spilled out when Xieshan mentioned his boss. Also, this power did not seem to be very afraid of Clear Sky Sect. This puzzled him. He could not think of any power in Little Mountain Jia that was not afraid of Clear Sky Sect. Xieshan was a clever person. Seeing Bao Yi, he knew what the other was thinking and roared with laughter, using his words to enlighten Bao Yi. Why is Boss Bao wavering? I cannot think of any situation that is worse than the present one. Bao Yi thought, that was right. What could be worse than his present situation? Since the other already knew he was on bad terms with Clear Sky Sect, yet still dared to hire him, then he had to have some form of support. He had some savings, but everyone knew how that he and Clear Sky Sect were on bad terms. They probably had already started scheming against him. Clear Sky Sect might restrict fighting in Nansheng village, but if he was robbed, it was very likely that Clear Sky Sect had been acting against him up in the shadows. After thinking it through, he did not hesitate any longer. Since Boss Xia holds Bao Yi in such esteem, I'm not one to not recognize what is good for me. From now on, please take good care of me. Haha. That's fine. Xia Shan's mood instantly rose. Bao Yi smiled. We didn't come here this time for the Ling grains, right? The word "we" instantly tightened the distance between the two people. Xia Shan was very satisfied that Bao Yi had entered his role so quickly. He raised a thumb up at Bao Yi. Old Bao is so smart. Boss heard that many Xiuzha were gathering in Nansheng village, and told me to come to see if we can hire some talents. He decided to reveal some information to Bao Yi. He had come to see Bao Yi originally to find some information, but out of consideration for safety, he had not directly said that he was looking into the Xiuzha of the village. Bao Yi said in a deep voice, "What kind of talent does our boss want to hire? This little brother has stayed for a while at Nansheng village, and might know something." Xia Shan's eye lit up. Anyone that has one skill. Bao Yi had a general understanding. This boss that he had never met before had an extremely strong base, and his ambitions were not small. These days in Little Mountain Jia, the days of any kind of Xiuzha other than combat Xiu were extremely difficult. Since he had decided to enter the others group, Bao Yi decided he needed to perform well. In any organization, in order to be recognized, the simplest method was to let the boss see your abilities and understand your value. Do we have enough manpower? He asked. Enough. Chapter 243. Jade Scroll in the Secret Realm. His subordinate Xiuzha were giving their reports. The Yao army has established their base in the Wukong Mountains. It is very heavily guarded. Our people do not dare to go close. Bo Feng nodded. Do not alert them, but keep an eye on them. If they make any unusual movements, report immediately. Yes. Bo Feng asked some more questions about the details before letting the Xiuzha leave. When the Xiuzha left the tent, two figures suddenly appeared inside the tent. Bo Feng did not seem to be surprised. What are you really looking for? Gui Feng asked in a rough voice. At his side, Chang Heng's expression was indifferent, as though he did not care about this question. Haha, you'll know when it is time. Bo Feng smiled. Chang Heng was not interested in this matter. He stared at Bo Feng. Give the other half of the scripture to me. Bo Feng said easily. No problem. Gui Feng's expression changed. He seemed to be thinking. Zhuo Mo carefully looked at the black butterfly in front of him. Chun Yucheng was at his side, his eyes blazing as he observed the black butterfly. Zhuo Mo's mind had received a notice that the rainbow-marked butterfly had broken through its cocoon. Zhuo Mo had hurriedly pulled Chun Yucheng with him. When Chun Yucheng heard that the rainbow-marked butterfly had finished its metamorphosis, it instantly stirred his interest, and he took a rare absence from his beast pool. The rainbow-marked butterfly had completely changed. The rainbow colors that had covered its entire body had disappeared. Now, its body was completely black, contrasting against a pair of lively eyes. Can the spell still be used? Chun Yucheng asked. Still usable, and there now seems to be one more spell. Zhuo Mo closed his eyes and carefully communicated with the black butterfly. When he started his communication, he instantly felt a difference compared to the past. Before, he could only feel some pieces of what the rainbow-marked butterfly could feel. Presently, he could clearly feel the emotions of the butterfly. The black butterfly had become more intelligent than before. So it leveled up. Chun Yucheng said with excitement. Previously, it was just a third-grade Ling beast. Now it should be a fourth-grade Ling beast. No wonder it has another spell. Have you discovered what kind of spell it is? A very weird spell. Zhuo Mo's expression was slightly weird. What spell? Chun Yucheng asked impatiently. Poison Ling. Poison Ling? What kind of spell is that? Chun Yucheng was puzzled. He had never heard of this kind of spell. It is unclear. Zhuo Mo shook his head. He was also ignorant. The two people looked at each other, with their faces confused. However, they did find out that the rainbow mark butterfly had leveled up to 4th grade. Due to the black color of its body, Swordsmanship decided to change its name to Black Butterfly. He would have to slowly investigate what this poison ling was. It would be great if it could level up to become a 5th grade ling beast. Swordsmanship drooled as he dreamed. He decided that he would definitely feed anything poisonous to the black butterfly if he found them in the future. He had personally experienced how powerful a 5th grade ling beast was. If the black butterfly could level up to 5th grade, it could definitely beat down the bloody horn serpent. Of course, he quickly wiped clean his drool. It had been so difficult to level up to 4th grade from 3rd grade. He could only dream about leveling up to 5th grade. He picked up the gourd as well. The poison inside the gourd had all dissipated. It was a pretty good container-type talisman, especially for containing substances that were intangible. He was not polite in picking it up. Chun Yucheng saw that he could not discover anything else, so he rushed back to the beast pool. Right after Chun Yucheng left, Gong Sun Chao approached him immediately after. Swordsmanship saw that the other's expression was slightly strange and asked, "What? Did something happen? Take a look." Gong Sun Chao handed over a jade scroll. Swordsmanship took the jade scroll and skimmed it. He jumped in fright. "Holy moly, they're crazy. I was frightened too." Gong Sun Chao grimaced. "However, these people are pretty good." The last sentence revealed his true thoughts. "It really is very good." Swordsmanship couldn't stop himself from reading further. The more the read, the wider his mouth grew. "Xixiang, do you think we will take?" "Yes." Swordsmanship shook like a basin of cold water had been poured over his head on a hot summer day. His energy then swelled up. Holding his neck in an arch, he shouted, "Of course we'll take them. All of them. Every single one. Do not leave one behind." Ji Wei, Sun Bao and the other people that had been forging were frightened by the insanity that Swordsmanship displayed. Only the female Xiao that was standing nearby was unaffected, as though she had not heard it. In the camp, everyone was busy cultivating. The new members needed large amounts of training before they could join the combat system. Before this, they had all been normal Xiaojia, and were too unfamiliar with things like battle formations. "It is so boring." A Xiaojia sighed. When he glanced at the group of people who were training laboriously, he felt a burst of dullness. After the number of people grew, it was not suitable anymore to divide into small teams. Gong Sun Cha reorganized the teams into 6 companies. Each company had 122 people, who were then divided into 6 platoons. They were led by a company leader and a vice company leader. Each platoon had 6 squads that were commanded by the platoon leader, who was assisted by the vice platoon leader. Each squad had 3 people, one of which was the squad leader. Due to the large number of new members, to help the new members quickly enter their roles, these old-timers that were now the company leaders had all taken up positions as instructors. However, to them, teaching the new people was an extremely boring task. When they saw the raw cooperation between the new members and their awkward movements, they were usually speechless. Even though they clearly knew that they had been no better when they first started, but they thirsted for battle. Gong Sun Cha was like a successful wolf tamer. The sheep under his command had been slowly transformed into wolves. They had started to thirst for battle. Many people had admired Xie Shan and the others who had gone to carry out a mission. While they held admiration, they could only stay and stare. Those people were stronger than they were. They also understood that the stronger they were, the more likely it was that they would carry out more difficult missions, and had a chance to earn more merit. Even Gong Sun Cha had never expected his unintentional actions had caused the sword formation to become the most attractive prize. Comprehending sword essence was the best path to increasing power. A person said without strength, "The earlier that we finish training these greenhorns, the earlier we get to rest. Laozi will never do this ever again." One of the people said furious, "This group of trash. They can't even perform the simplest 3-talent formation after all this time. They are so stupid." "Please," someone else beside him sneered. "Hazy, you talk as though you were so skilled at the beginning. We weren't much better than them at the beginning." "Oh, when can we go out on a mission? Laozi is so idle that my tastes have turned vegetarian." Hazy wailed, his expression dejected. Yes, these days are too boring. People beside him also sighed. Whoosh whoosh. A humming sound suddenly sounded above the formation without any warning. The two people stilled, looked at each other, and shook simultaneously before they jumped up from the ground like lightning. Hazy looked at the two new members that were still motionless and swore. What are you doing sitting there? Move faster. This is the emergency signal. Finishing, he leaped into the air, the two new members hurriedly following behind him. Moving figures could be seen in the sky above the camp. The shouts of the company and platoon leaders ran out frequently. Faster, faster. What are you procrastinating for? Keep up. Find your position. Don't move around. A tense atmosphere covered the entire camp. All the Xiozha quickly gathered together. Within 30 breaths, all the Xiozha in the camp had flew into the air, and the ranks had finished assembling. The old-timers who saw Lil Miss staring at them became excited. There was going to be something to do, a big thing. Gong Sun Cha did not waste words. Seeing the troop had finished assembling, he waved his hand lightly. Everyone move out. More than 700 Xiozha silently flowed like a soundless flood across the sky. Nansheng Village, Great Wind Merchant House. Little Wei, calculate the accounts for today. The storekeeper slowly savored the Ling tea and lightly ordered. Yes, Wei Qingbin instinctively answered. The storekeeper detected Wei Qingbin's inattentiveness, his face instantly darkening. What? You worried about something? Do you feel dissatisfied with the work? It was like Wei Qingbin had been woken up from a dream. When he saw the storekeeper's dark face, he knew that it was not good. He gave a smile. No. This one has just met a bit of a problem in my cultivation. Humph. The storekeeper snorted coldly. Cultivation? I hadn't seen before that Little Wei has great ambitions. You want to reach Jindan? To live, you have to be reliable. Do you know how many people are trying to get your ration of 50 caddies of ling grains per month? Cultivation? Don't waste this old man's ling grains. Wei Qingbin's face flushed entirely red. The storekeeper glanced at him and drawled. One has to know their own limits. Little Mountain Jia has not had cultivation in a long time ago. 2/10 off this month's wage of ling grains. When he finished, he strode away. Wei Qingbin's head was bent, and he did not make a sound. Unknowingly, his fists were so tight that they had turned white. After the storekeeper had gone far away, he relaxed his fists. In his hand was a jade scroll. This was a jade scroll he had received 2 days ago. It was an announcement for hiring. The other had learned from somewhere that he had a skill at illusory formations, and came to headhunt him. They promised 200 caddies of ling grains per month. Wei Qingbin had come from a sect, and his best skill was some little illusory formations. He could make extremely exquisite mirage formations. However, this great skill had not provided him with any benefit in a situation such as the present one. He had asked around everywhere, almost spending all his savings to beg to get a job like this. Accounting, hard labor, cleaning, he did everything. Compared to those Xiozha that worried for ling grains, he was much luckier. Rationally, he could settle down, but when he received this jade scroll, his heart uncontrollably started to jump. He did not know how many times the Shixiang had mocked him for playing with those little formations. In many people's eyes, he was the classical example of someone who only played around. The sect elders had thought of him as one who did not treasure their talent, especially after he had cultivated to Ningmai, and had treated him coldly. This job might let him scrape by, but he didn't know how many eye rolls he had gotten. The enormous store, other than the storekeeper, he was the only one remaining. He had to do all the work. For some reason, the sneer and disdain of the storekeeper flashed in front of his eyes. Impulsiveness was the demon. Impulsiveness was the demon. He continuously told himself, but his feet uncontrollably started to walk towards the outside. What are you doing? You idiot. I raised a trash like you for nothing. You don't have to come tomorrow. The storekeeper's bellows came from behind him. Wei Qingbin suddenly felt his body was unspeakably light, his steps increasing speed. In the dark, his eyes were as bright as jewels. Chapter 244. Consensus in Little Mountain Jia. No one would pay attention to the flow of xiuzha. What everyone was attentive to was the flow of ling grains. As for xiuzha, who would care? Wei Qingbin found the place according to the address on the jade scroll. His heart was slightly insecure. He should have first confirmed it. If this jade scroll was a joke that someone played on him, then it would be terrible. This was the place. Two lifelike authoritative and ferocious stone lion-type auspicious beasts were standing by the two sides of the gate. He had some experience and knew these were mechanized golem beasts. They usually were motionless, but if one dared to attack, then they would attack at the first possible moment. The black metal gate was tightly shut. The light of Jinji occasionally flashed by. He was slightly reassured. Families that had this kind of house in Nansheng village should have at least some power. He put his palm on the copper bell diagram carved on the door and channeled Ling power. Ding dong. The bell sound was clear and ethereal. A moment later, the metal door slowly opened. A brawny man with a face full of scruff examined him, his gaze as sharp as a knife. Wei Qingbin felt his body tighten. He might be in Ningmai, but his combat abilities were very low. He had broken through to Ningmai due to a moment of enlightenment after working with illusory formations. He nervously swallowed. The brutal aura exuded by the large man in front of him created fear in him. I am Wei Qingbin. 2 days ago, I received a jade scroll, it said. Hearing Wei Qingbin stammer on for a long time yet unable to clearly state his meaning, Lei Peng lost his patience and interrupted. Okay. This is the place, you didn't go to the wrong place. Finishing, he raised Wei Qingbin with one hand as though he was picking up a little chicken, and flew inside. Wei Qingbin closed his eyes in fright, his entire body shaking. Lei Peng rolled his eyes inside. He didn't know who had suggested that he should be the one to welcome this group of people. Every single one person in this group was as cowardly as mice, and shook whenever they saw him. This compound was just one of Bao Yi's secret properties. As cunning as a rabbit, he had backups upon backups. That was his usual conduct. Another one came. The Ling power on Lei Peng's hand spat slightly, and Wei Qingbin was stunned into unconsciousness. He carelessly threw him on the ground. And there's already 8 in this batch. With him, we only need 1 more before we can send them off, Xieshan said with satisfaction. He had exceeded his mission this time. According to Bao Yi's intelligence, they had found 3 xiuzha skilled in building cities. Without an exception, none of the 3 were able to resist the temptation of 200 caddies of ling grains per month. He couldn't help but sigh. If they were anywhere outside of Little Mountain Jia, no matter where they went, they would be treated courteously. But in Little Mountain Jia, where life was worth as much as grass, just 200 caddies of ling grains was enough to buy a xiuzha's life. As a xiuzha, Xieshan couldn't not help but marvel. Bao Yi was off to the side. He was rejoicing that he had made the right choice. Even though he had not seen the boss yet, but he had been successively shocked by boss strength. Up until now, more than 60 people had been sent away. The people that had been delivered outside seemed to have disappeared into thin air. There definitely were people who were cooperating with them outside of the city, and that number would not be small. This group of people really were daring to act so boldly under Clear Sky Sect's nose. However, he felt very good secretly at being able to dig at Clear Sky Sect walls. He really had his action of throwing in the lot beautiful. He Xiang looked down at the leaders of the different factions, the feeling of accomplishment in his heart reaching the peak in an instant. Previously, when he met any of the people seated here, he would have to nod his head and bend his waist, but right now, he could clearly capture the fear they had of him in the deepest part of their eyes. This feeling was really good. He quickly pulled himself back. He was very clear what his mission was. A warm and careful smile piled onto his face. His voice was very light like the clouds high up in the sky. My thanks to everyone here for waiting so long. Then we shall now begin. 70 people. It should be enough. How about it? Let's stop? Lei Peng said impatiently. They had been guarding here every day. That Clear Sky sect was really trash. They hadn't reacted in the slightest. In the beginning, he had thought that this time would be a big mission. Who knew that it was so boring and tasteless? He just wanted to return to camp now. Xieshan did not pay attention to him. He looked at the list and frowned. Why did the remaining people not come? Hearing this, Bowie didn't know whether to laugh or cry. We use ling grains to attract them. In the end it is like business, you and I have to both be willing. The remainder probably are living quite well now, and do not want to move. Then we will just leave them? Xieshan was slightly discontent. He did not want to leave any regrets in the first mission he was leading. Bowie spread his hands. Then what? It's not like we can kidnap them. Kidnap them? Xieshan's eyes lit up as he clapped in excitement. This idea is great. How come I didn't think of it? Hearing this, Lei Peng, who was at so much leisure that he felt restless, was also excited and furiously nodded. Not bad, not bad. We'll kidnap all of them. We won't leave one behind. The other people snickered as they exchanged looks. Zhongru helplessly raised his eyelids. His samadhi had been interrupted once again. Bowie paled. No way. No way. It is very lucky that our recent actions had not attracted Clear Sky Sect's attention. If we go to kidnap people, we would certainly alarm Clear Sky Sect. Then it would be great trouble. We're not afraid. Lei Peng twisted his mouth and said scornfully. Bowie hurriedly looked at the other people. When he saw the anticipatory expressions on their faces, he felt his vision darken. He thought of Zhongru. In his mind, Zhongru had always been calm and reliable. He definitely would not approve of this course of action. But before he could look at Zhongru, he heard Zhongru say in a voice filled with helplessness, "Should we do it now? Let's go, let's finish so I can go back sooner to train my samadhi." Bowie felt his head instantly sink into stillness. All 15 people agreed to the kidnapping. From the suggestions to passing the motion, it hadn't taken more than a minute. To be able to plan such a large kidnapping under the mighty Clear Sky Sect's eyes, it was enough to make everyone except Bowie feel their blood boil. Only this way would they not have wasted their journey here. Since they had decided, everyone quickly started to finalize the plan. After following Lil Miss for so long, they had started to learn how to make a plan, and the beginnings of being professional brutes. Bao Yi's face was pale as he listened from the side. He decided he would definitely stay far away from this group of madmen in the future. Especially Zhongru. Only now did he know how wrong he had been. Zhongru usually indifferent, but when he spoke, malicious and evil ideas were lightly thrown out. With one word from one and another from the other, a simple and rough plan was quickly born. When Wei Qingbin woke up, he found that he was on someone's back. The sound of wind that occasionally sounded around him let him know that he was flying at high speed through the air. He did not dare to move. He knew the limits of his own abilities. Up until now, he did not make a sound. He slightly turned his head and warily scanned the surroundings. Not 10 zhang away from him, there was a Xiuzha. He was also carrying a person on his back. When he clearly saw the surroundings, he was greatly shocked. There were more than 100 Xiuzha around him. Of those, only 20 of the Xiuzha were carrying people. The other Xiuzha had placed them at the very center. Wei Qingbin finally thought of what had occurred before he had become unconscious. Which faction did this group of people belong to? They really looked like a big faction. Even though he did not know his own future, but he was full of anticipation. It was very clear that this was an extremely well thought out plan. More than 100 Xiuzha were protecting and transporting the 20 of them. It could be seen how importantly they were being treated. The other side had spent such effort, so what they aimed for definitely would not be small. Notice your rhythm. Control the output of Ling power. Preserve the flexibility of the ranks. Combat units at the outermost layer, be on your guard. Try to avoid the clouds. He could hear endless shouts of scolding. What Wei Qingbin found wondrous was that the Xiuzha in the surroundings did not make a sound as they continuously adjusted their position. For some unknown reason, the stern silence this group of Xiuzha maintained made Wei Qingbin to feel a different kind of power. He couldn't help but make a closer examination. The troop that was in front of his eyes were different than any other troop he had seen before. More than 100 people were flying, but the ranks were so organized it was as though they had been drawn out with a ruler. The elites that he had seen before had been more relaxed and spread out. In front of this group, they seemed more like a random group of soldiers. He could occasionally see Xiuzha in groups of 3 or 5 moving far away. Those were probably sentries. The more he saw, the greater his shock was. The power that this troop displayed surpassed the limits of his imagination. Wei Ran's mind was tightly alert. He was the division leader of the 2nd Division, but before this he had never led a group larger than 30 people. He was worried that he would not do a good job, and thus he was extremely attentive. He also worked hard at his cultivation. This was the first mission he was undergoing as a division leader. The mission that Gong Sun Cha had given him was not difficult. Move forward along a predetermined path, and transport the 20 people back to the camp. When he had first heard the mission, he had released a breath, but when he saw the path, his expression became unnatural. This path drew out an extremely large curve. It was akin to having traveled in a circle before returning to the camp. He did not understand why Lil Miss would make such a complex and roundabout path. What worried him the most was this path would take him through the territories of multiple factions. This meant that they could be attacked at any time. However, when he saw the unnatural expressions of the other division leaders, he instantly understood. This was a mission, but it was also a test. Lil Miss was testing whether they had the abilities to be a division leader. Up until now, they had not encountered any dangers. However, they had encountered several Xiuzha yesterday that had skirted around them before leaving. Wei Ran was experienced in battle, and understood that people had locked onto his group. On the entire way, he had constantly maintained the troop formations for combat. Seeing the increasingly practiced display from the Xiuzha under him, he couldn't help but sigh. As expected, true combat would temper a person. The improvement they had made in the last few days surpassed the improvement they had made in the previous month. A blinding red light suddenly exploded in the sky in front of them. Wei Ran's pupils suddenly shrank. It had come. That was the warning spell that their sentries had cast. He tried to compose himself, his mind furiously thinking back to what Lil Miss usually did. He raised his right hand to copy the aloofness of Lil Miss, his voice coming out abnormally cold. Prepare for battle. Chapter 245. First battle. The sentries that had been swimming at the edges started to spread out. Their job was not to engage in battle, but to observe the direction of the entire battlefield. Wei Ran's expression was cold, his lips tightly pressed together. There were about 200 people in the enemy that were full of murderous intent as they charged. Wei Ran straightened his back like a sharp and upright spear. He slightly floated in the air. The shouts of the platoon leaders as they shouted at maximum passing into his ears. All of you be alert. Notice your position. What is in front of you is a pile of trash. Kill them. Kill them all. Later, don't think of anything. Where I go, charge after me. Whoever fucking lingers behind, watch how I'll take care of him later. Follow what you usually do during training. The platoon leaders were doing their last adjustments before the battle. Most of the people under their command were greenhorns. They all had above average individual power, but in this kind of battle tactic style that demanded rigor, so cooperation was the crux of victory. The rough, serious, or relaxed mobilizations burrowed into Wei Ran's ears. He uncontrollably started to heat up. He did not notice that a smear of red had appeared in his eyes. This really made a person's blood boil. Watching as the other side neared, Wei Ran raised his right hand again. All the noise disappeared. All 122 Xiuzha were completely silent. The entire troop was like a great bow that had been fully drawn. Everyone's nerves were tensed to their limits, especially the Xiuzha at the front. The Ling power in their body vibrated, their presence continuously rising. However, their feet seemed to be nailed to their spot. Wei Qingbin unconsciously stopped breathing, his mind a patch of blankness. He had never experienced such a shocking battle. This patch of silence was like an invisible noose that wrapped around him and slowly tightened, choking his throat shut. It was slightly suffocating. He opened his mouth to pant heavily. He widened his eyes, and instinctively stared at the Xiuzha at the front raise his right hand. His entire body started to unconsciously shake. He didn't know if it was in terror or excitement. Wei Ran coldly watched as the enemy entered the range of attack, the raised right hand suddenly chopping down. Kill. Pia. The air exploded crisply like a firework. The The furiously rampaging Ling power of the 20 Xiuzha that were at the front platoon suddenly lost their restraints and exploded. 20 figures suddenly disappeared into the air. Pia. It was another soul-shaking explosion. 20 Xiuzha from the second platoon also disappeared into the air. Pia. The third platoon quickly followed behind. The trademark 3-section wave killing charge. Each little troop carried a gigantic sword energy 20 zhang above their heads. This was an attack created by the merging of 3 Xiuzha's power. This kind of Ling merging technique could only be activated when the 3-talent formation reached a certain skill level. The gigantic sword energies tore through the air and howled. On the entire battlefield, all the other sword energies and spells lost color in comparison. In front of the gigantic sword energy, individual sword energies were as fragile as chopsticks, breaking upon impact. As fast as lightning. One platoon had 6 teams. It was as though 6 staggered blades cut right to the middle of the enemy. Blood rained through the sky. 6 deep bloody marks appeared in the ranks of the enemy. Anywhere they passed, if one was just brushed, it meant either cutting off the limbs or breaking the spine. With destructive force, they penetrated through the enemy formation. The enemy leaders' eyes bulged out of their sockets. Dragged them down. Their later power. Just as he had spoken halfway, the ghostly wail-like howl of the gigantic sword energy sounded again. The second platoon had arrived. 6 gigantic sword essences cut from a small angle on the right, as they curved into the enemy formation. Pew pew pew. After a string of alarming sounds of cut of limbs and broken bones, the 6 gigantic sword essences plowed out 6 broad bloody groves. Wails passed into everyone's ears. The third platoon attacked from the opposite angle. Just as the second platoon had finished passing through the enemy formation, the third platoon had coincidentally entered the center of the enemy formation. Wei Ran pressed his lips tightly together. The power of the 3-section wave killing charge was evident. The courage of the enemy had been stolen. Their morale plummeted, and they had no more desire to battle. What he needed to do next was lay down the last straw that would break the camel's back. The 4th and 5th platoon suddenly attacked. The enemy, whose courage had already been stolen, panicked when they saw the 4th and 5th platoons press forward. In an instant, they broke formation and their lines collapsed as they scattered in all directions. Wei Ran's body finally relaxed. The battle had been settled. The 3-section wave killing charge was peerless in its killing power, but it was not as though it did not have weaknesses. Its biggest weakness was that it was weak in its follow-up. If the enemy could stop the first few cycles of attacks, then they would be the ones in danger. The giant sword energies could defend, but the Ling power consumed was extremely terrifying. Gathering up all the Ling power before the charge was not just to posture. Wei Ran released a breath. This battle was much smoother than he had imagined. It now had no meaning. The leaders of the platoons directed the little teams to continuously move and cut. Even the leaders that he had a good relationship with before had reversed their attitudes and remained silent. He knew that these people just wanted to bargain, but for him who wanted to show his accomplishments, his abilities would only be displayed if he could push the price to the bottom. There were more than a few that were scheming after his position. He did not want to give them an opportunity. He smiled, not showing his thoughts. Everyone is tired today, let's take a rest. This one has prepared a banquet especially for this, please everyone come attend. The leaders exchanged looks with each other, rose, and said they were tired and wanted to rest. Xiang did not force them, smiling as he sent them out the door. When the last leader left, his dark expression could not be disguised any longer. He needed a way to divide them, he thought inside. Just as he turned to leave, he coincidentally caught the mirth in the eyes of one of the other elders, and his mood instantly became even more terrible. Is everyone sure of their target? Xieshan asked as he looked at everyone. Everyone nodded. Lei Peng rumbled. Motherfucker, Laozi even had to watch him as he went to the bathroom. It really is unlucky. Everyone laughed lightly. To guarantee they would succeed with one blow, everyone had rehearsed before. They had divided the 10 targets among them. We will move in 2 hours. Xieshan did not waste words. All 15 people had their own techniques. He might have the highest cultivation, but he did not dare to posture. Fortunately, everyone was rule-abiding and did not need him to nag. 15 people silently spread out in all directions. Lei Peng's target was a guy skilled in dan-making. Even though Ling materials were now in short supply in Little Mountain Jia, but some businesses still had some in stock. Due to this person had found a pretty good job. Consequently, when he had received the Jade Scroll, he had weighed his options and decided to stay with his current employer, especially since his current employer was good to him, and the Jade Scroll was of unknown origins. He was not willing to take the risk. For some reason, he felt the willies today as though something was going to happen. This caused him to be unable to focus. Every time he had this feeling, there never was anything good. He raised his head to look at the sky. The clouds were very low in the air, dense and suffocating. Medicine Master, the owner is calling you. The busboy hurriedly rushed over. Oh, I'm going now. He refocused and hurriedly moved. There was probably another job for him to do. He had just passed through into the backyard when he suddenly felt pain at the back of his head. His vision darkened, and he did not know anything else. Lei Peng held him with one hand and looked around. Looking around to see if he had alarmed any other people, he grinned silently before disappearing into the air. However, not everyone had the same good fortune as him. For example, Nian Lu. Nian Lu looked with panic at his target. A female Xiao skilled with livestock. She was presently teaching the other people how to put together feed for Ling beasts. These apprentices were extremely respectful and listened carefully. The time to act had arrived. Seeing that the target would definitely not be leaving soon, Nian Lu gritted his teeth and decided to move. His figure was like a ghost that appeared behind the female Xiao. His hand gently chopped, his left hand raising and grasping. The unconscious female Xiao was on his back. His movements were clean and crisp. Only when he had disappeared through the door did the apprentices finally react, yelling in fear. The guards of the store were instantly alerted and flew into the air. The same situation at the same time occurred at different places in Nansheng Village. Nansheng Village instantly became a mess. Chapter 246. Ambush the Camp. Zuoyamo looked at the female Xiao and scratched his head. You need a name. This way we can call each other. After changing his body, his hair had become short. When he scratched, he felt the hair was prickly like metal wire. So strange. How could his hair be this hard? The female Xiao did not seem to hear him. When Zuoyamo had inspected her injuries last time, he found that there was a strange and icy power inside her body. The reason the alarming injuries inside her body had not worsened was due to this strange power. This unknown power was like strong spider silk that reached into every corner of her body. Zuoyamo would think sometimes that if the strange power did not exist, her body would shatter into pieces. The reason her presence caused fear in others should also be caused by this unknown power, Zuoyamo thought to himself. No one dared to go near her. Even Silly Bird, the silly big sister, did not dare to go within 3 zhang of her, not to mention the cowardly pair of Lil Pagoda and Lil Black. Seeing the female Xiao's lack of response, Zuoyamo put his attention back on the wiry hair on his scalp. He wouldn't be turning into a Yao beast, right? He thought inside. The 3 golden armor guards stood nearby with their swords. They also seemed to be slightly afraid of the female Xiao. Weren't the golden armor guards golems? Why would they be afraid of a person? The female Xiao was a puzzle. It seemed like there would be no result today. Zuoyamo shook his head. He had persisted in chatting with the female Xiao every day to deepen their connection, but up until now, there was no result. She was like a stone statue that stood there motionlessly. Zuoyamo had never even heard her speak. Was she mute? Zuoyamo thought uncertainly. In his mind, this female did not seem to have come from a big sect, because she was truly too unclean and ugly. Behind the disheveled appearance was a mess of dense lichen-like scabies. The only part untouched was the pair of bare feet. In reality, Zuoyamo had never seen such beautiful feet. Symmetrical and white like jade and porcelain. There were no flaws. They were warm and delicate, exquisite like nothing else. When Zuoyamo had been inspecting her injuries, and when he had seen this pair of bare feet for the first time, His mind had blanked for a moment. They seemed to hold a fatal attraction that made one unable to move their gaze aside. It was a pity that scabies covered everything above the knees. She wore the mask and a loose hemp robe. Her bare feet were in the mud. The snowy white and fine bare feet, and the black mud made a strong contrast. Every time Zhuemo saw it, he would uncontrollably stop breathing. What followed after would be pity. It was very pitiful for a woman to be covered in scabies. He sighed inside. He didn't know what he was sighing about. He flew onto a mountain peak. Looking into the distance, the sky was tourmaline and the white clouds were like silk. The wind was gentle and refreshing. At the base of the mountain, the Sky Star Lake was like a clear jewel embedded among the mountain peaks. Zhuemo's mood instantly opened up. Little Mountain Jia might have lost its Ling energy, but there was not much of a difference to these flora and wild beasts. Due to the lack of activity of Xiuzha, the mountains were even more green. In order to construct the city, he moved the camp to Sky Star Mountain. He suddenly thought of the unwillingness on Chun Yucheng's face. He grinned. Chun Shidi was really a maniac about livestock. Ji Wei and Sun Bao led their subordinates and furiously rushed about. The amount of materials needed to construct a city was an exceedingly terrifying number. For example, the bricks. Most of them had to be cut from the mountain. Each piece had to be processed and carved with formations. It was not hard for Xiuzha to cut rocks, but processing them was not as easy. To increase the speed, Zhuemo had set up a large formation to gather large amounts of golden crow fire again. Each person received a portion. The Xiuzha naturally were overjoyed and worked harder. Each piece of bluestone was 3 zhang long, 1 zhang wide, and 1 zhang high. After the golden armor guards mined it, the Xiuzha would start to process it. What caused Zhuemo to have a headache was the grade of the golden crow fire was too high. If they were the slightest bit inattentive, these second-grade bluestones would turn into a pile of molten rocks. Later, the problem was finally solved when they decided to first carve the formations before they processed with the golden crow fire. However, during the entire processing method, the bluestone bricks would shrink to more than half its original size and turn to a blue-gold color. The quality was extremely dense and hard. Zhuemo had experimented. Even if he chopped with a flying sword, sparks would fly, but the brick would not be damaged. Only when Zhuemo channeled all the Ling power in his body would the sword cut halfway into the brick. Such a material would not be enough to use to make Ling armor, but it was more than sufficient to use for city walls. 50 Xiuzha were all tasked with processing bluestone bricks. Zhuemo himself was busy with surveying the geography. The newly constructed city had to have formations. The formations he set up this time were to face a Jindan. This was an unprecedented test for Zhuemo. The large formations he had set up before, including the large formation on Desolate Wood Reef, were not enough to stop a Jindan. He had seen Jindan before, but had never fought against one before. He did not know how powerful they are, but he knew they were definitely more powerful than he could imagine. There was an innate difference in terms of comprehension of Ling power between Ningmai and Jindan. He did not know how great this innate difference was. He could only do as much as he was able. The path was dangerous. Looking at the mountains in the distance, Zhuemo's eyes were black and deep. Nian Lu was carrying a person on his back, while the scenery flashed by. His speed had not been impeded at all. If one looked closely, they would find that a white lotus was under his feet. With the white robes, the tender white lotus flower, he looked unspeakably handsome as he flew in the wind. The eyes of many young females along his path lit up. Whoa! So handsome! The shrieks of the female Xiu were endless. The Xiuzha that were pursuing him heard the exclamations, causing their expressions to become even uglier. Nian Lu did not use any disguise at this time. He picked the most straightforward path, a straight line. Not just him, the other 9 people had also picked straight lines. From different places within the village, they all sprinted towards the village gate of Nansheng Village. If one looked down from above Nansheng Village, they would see 10 figures drawing out 10 straight lines that were going to intersect at the village gate. Behind them, there were between 50 and 60 Xiuzha who seemed to be attracted and pulled towards the village gate. Many Xiuzha flew into the sky. They were watching the spectacle. Inside they were very shocked. Who dared to be so presumptuous in Clear Sky Sect's territory? Lei Peng was the first to reach the village gate. He even had the leisure to look back at his fellows that were sprinting towards him. Giving a smug grin, he then turned and slowly went through the village gate. The other 9 people simultaneously saw the smug expression on Lei Peng's face, and they all rolled their eyes at the same time. Without needed to exchange a word, they snorted and moved faster. Ear-piercing howling instantly roared through Nanxing village. The 9 figures were like 9 sharp arrows that howled as they headed straight for the village gates. The gate of Nanxing village was just a symbolic construction. He Xiang had never expected people to dare to scheme against Clear Sky Sect. Who would dare to rampage on Clear Sky Sect's territory? Only if that person did not want to keep living in Little Mountain Jia. Due to this, the defenses of Nanxing village were pitifully weak. The 9 figures flashed past at high speeds. The pitiful gates were torn to pieces by the knife-like tailwinds. Dust and wood flew at the village gates. The Xiuzha in pursuit directly ran into it. Seeing the situation, they did not slow down. A light flashed across their Ling armor, and their Ling shields were opened as they prepared to directly go through the village gate. I just knew that these people want us to eat their dust. Inside the dust, someone complained. Countless sword energies suddenly shot out of the dust like bats hiding in the dark that showed their vampiric teeth. There's an ambush. The pursuing Xiuzha all paled. Pew pew pew. The Xiuzha at the very front basically had no time to react. Their Ling armor was instantly penetrated like it was made of papier-mâché. Several bloody holes appeared on the body of this Xiuzha. The expression of this Xiuzha instantly froze, his body losing control and falling into the dirt like a bag of sand. It was not just him alone. Several of the Xiuzha in the front did not survive. Sword essence. The Xiuzha at the back paled. Such destructive sword energies, there was only one possibility. Sword essence. Only Sword Xiu that comprehended sword essence could release such a terrifying sword energy, which could so easily penetrate Ling armor and kill with one strike. There were not many sword energies, but they were of different colors. It was clear they had been released by different Sword Xiu. There wasn't just one Sword Xiu who had comprehended sword essence. The expressions of this group of Xiuzha changed drastically. Sword Xiu who comprehended sword essence were rare. 1 in 100 of Ningmai Sword Xiu comprehending sword essence was considered a rare event. Why did Sword Xiu always persist in trying to comprehend sword essence? That was because the power of the sword energies were much greater if one comprehended sword essence. This kind of increase depended on the individual and the sword scripture, but it was certain that Sword Xiu who comprehend sword essence were much scarier than Sword Xiu of the same cultivation who had not comprehended sword essence. 7 Sword Xiu died in the first encounter. Other than fear, the other people rejoiced inside that they had not been so close in their pursuit. What made them even happier was that the collision between the 2 sides had swept away the scattered dust. The other side also showed themselves. 5 people. There were only 5 people. Their hearts were slightly reassured. Even if these 5 people all comprehended sword essence, but the number was too small. There were 50 to 60 on their side. Zhongru stood on the street with his eyes closed, his hand holding the 4-flanged Vajragata. There was no joy or sorrow in his heart. His beaded bracelet had been destroyed in the battle with the bloody horn serpent. Zhuo had felt especially guilty and had the idea of finding a talisman for Zhongru. However, Zhongru was a rare Diana Xiu. Diana talismans were even harder to find. Zhuo had suddenly recalled that he had a damaged 4-flanged Vajragata in his ring. That 4-flanged Vajragata was a true Diana Xiu talisman. When Zhongru had used his full power with his bracelet, Zhuo had caught a thread of the mysteries of Diana talismans. He had put in great thought and reforged the 4-flanged Vajragata before giving it to Zhongru. When this 4-flanged Vajragata came into Zhongru's hands, Zhongru instantly knew this wasn't a Diana talisman of a low grade. The Gado itself contained extremely abundant Buddhist mindfulness. He did not know which great elder had carried this Gado along his path of enlightenment. Over time, this 4-flanged Vajragata had accumulated large amounts of Buddhist mindfulness. The power that this four-flanged Vajragata could express in Zhuomo's hands wasn't even 1% of what it could be in Zhongru's hands. The Buddhist mindfulness resting in the Gado itself was extremely beneficial to Zhongru's cultivation. What was most valuable was that there were many scenes of the comprehensions that the elder had experienced in Buddhist fixity. Zhongru, who had been troubled due to his lack of a teacher, progressed quickly upon receiving such a treasure. Other than his fist essence, even his abhina, which he had thought he would never form in this lifetime, had unintentionally formed. He felt the warm and cold presence that came from the four-flanged Vajragata. Just before the sword energies disappeared, Zhongru suddenly opened his tightly closed eyes. Chapter 247. Rainbow Mirage Light. Zhongru's gaze was indifferent. His left hand held the four-flanged Vajragata. His right hand formed a seal. Duo. His voice resounded like a vast bell. It was not high and exciting, but it could be heard throughout Nansheng village. With him as the center, an invisible hurricane swept outwards. The faces of the Xiuzha all changed. The Ling armors they were wearing were already activated, but this shout seemed to have sounded from the bottom of their hearts. Their Ling shields were not effective at all. What shocked them even more was all the Ling power in their bodies suddenly froze for a moment. Abhina, truth speech. The other four people took the opportunity to jump off the ground. Lightning fast, they were like four flying swords that thrust into the crowd. Ma Fan only took a quick glance and the battlefield was imprinted in his mind. After being the core for so long, his grasp of the entire battle situation was unparalleled in the camp. He had undergone the greatest change in the camp, or rather, he had improved the most, especially the presence he now had. When he had been made the core, his performance had been very inexperienced. After gradually adjusting, a presence appeared on his body, one that was extremely authoritative. He had previously been an eternally roaming wolf that always gave people the sense of danger. The present him was less attention-catching. His features were ordinary. In a crowd, it was now harder to pick him out. Illusory shadowless sword of destruction was the killing move he had used the most in the past, but as his understanding of sword essence in battle had deepened, he started to experiment with simpler sword moves. Gradually, the number of times he used illusory shadowless sword of destruction had decreased, and his edges had gradually been hidden. After he learned the 5th grade void movement method, which lacked the dazzle of his previous illusory movement method, the threat he posed increased rather than decreased. In a chaotic battle, it was difficult for the enemy to even detect his existence. Ma Fan's stealth was wonderfully displayed at this time. He was like an unnoticeable thread of light smoke floating among this crowd. There were no grand sword moves. Even his sword energies were just several cun long. He was like a little swordfish, but no one other than Xieshan could rival his efficiency. In the blink of an eye, he had defeated 7 or 8 people. Many people had not even found they had been attacked before he had disappeared without a shadow. Compared to Ma Fan's clean and high-efficiency killing intent that was concealed, Xieshan was a completely different style. Keen as a sword. He was like an unsheathed sword. Countless 5-colored sword essences swam around him like rainbow flying swords. The pressuring sword essences intercrossed, extremely beautiful, and full of killing intent. Xieshan was a clever person. He knew his strengths and weaknesses. In Little Mountain Jia, those with Ningmai 3rd stratum cultivation could be counted on the fingers. In the stage of Ningmai 3rd stratum, the lowest amount of Ling power in the body was 90 Jing. No one knew that the Ling power in Xieshan's body had reached an astounding 180 Jing. There was a saying that if a person could get the Ling power in their body to contain more than 200 Jing, they could enter Jindan. This kind of saying was not reliable, but it showed just how strong Xieshan was. He had almost reached the peak of Ningmai. The benefit of deep cultivation was that those killing moves that came at great cost were not significant to him. He rarely used killing moves. His comprehension of sword essence meant that he could easily face other enemies. However, Ma Fan had provoked his competitiveness today. The pure Ling power in his body were instantly channeled. The multicolored sword energies around his body brightened and vibrated. A light flashed through his eyes. His fingers came together. and he pointed at the crowd of Xiuzha. 5-colored light rose in the sky above his head in layers like an aurora curtain. The sun in the sky lost color at this moment. As his fingers pointed into the air, the aurora in the sky suddenly broke, and countless broken sword essences howled as they turned to streaming 5-colored lights that shot down. Killing intent rose with the rain of light. It was a 5-colored rainstorm. However, no one had the energy to spare to watch it. The sound of air tearing made everyone's scalp prickle. What shocked the surrounding spectators was that Xie Shan's move had covered all the Xiuzha that had been pursuing them. Rainbow Mirage Light. This beautiful and ethereal name was a terrifying killing move. The Ling power it consumed was even more astonishing. 150 Jing of Ling power. It was more than the total Ling power that the great majority of Ningmai contained in their bodies. Ma Fan's expression changed, and he did not hesitate in pulling out and retreating. He was not the only one. The other 2 Xiuzha who had charged forward also changed expressions, turning and then running back. This madman. They were extremely shocked. They knew that no one in the camp could compare to Xie Shan's cultivation, but they had never expected that he was this powerful. Ma Fan could not calm his heart. He had always assumed that while Xie Shan's cultivation was high, but they were equal in their strength. Due to the incorrect assumptions, he never placed much emphasis on his own cultivation. However, this scene today totally destroyed his worldview. They had escaped from this move because the sword essence in the sky had not locked onto them. Otherwise, it would have been as though they had sunk into quicksand and would be unable to take a single step. Xie Shan used this move to show them that Xiuzha of deep cultivation were terrifying. The Xiuzha that were covered by the rainbow rain were in tragic states. Other than sharpness, the 5-colored sword energies also had a strange corroding power. The Ling shield would only hold up to several blows before it would break. The Xiuzha that had been struck by the 5-colored streams of light were not able to even make a sound before their bodies rapidly changed into a puddle of soft 5-colored mud. Lei Peng and the other 9 that had ran away stopped at this time. They stared with their mouths wide open in shock as they looked in the direction of Nansheng village to see that patch of terrifying rainbow rain. Before they could sigh, they saw the 5 people flying over. Everyone's gaze as they looked at Xie Shan had changed. Xie Shan was not very smug. He only had 30 Jing of Ling power left in his body. It would not be good if a battle occurred again. Move quickly. He did not hesitate as he passed by the others and threw out the 2 words. The others woke and hurriedly channeled their Ling power as they fled for their lives. Everyone knew that they had gone overboard. The killing move that consumed 150 Jing of Ling power had startled all the Xiuzha in Nansheng village. In the blink of an eye, all the Xiuzha in Nansheng village flew into the sky. The sky was covered. Their expressions were strangely similar, extremely shocked. Even the few Ningmai 3rd stratum Xiuzha had paled. 150 Jing of Ling power. That was more than all the Ling power in their bodies. Not one Xiuzha was standing in the area covered by the rainbow rain. Ling armor, talismans and flying swords covered the ground. At this time no one dared to go and pick them up. The rainbow liquid that was flowing everywhere was like a beautiful yet fatal poison. He Xiang gaped as he looked at this scene, his mind blank. It was over. Having stayed at the camp, Zuemo did not know at all that the affair had become so large. He was busy settling in the first batch of Xiuzha that had arrived. The Xiuzha that were skilled in city building had been delivered to Sky Star Mountain with the quickest possible speed. Seeing the patch of wild mountains and a crude camp, many people had disappointed expressions. Zuemo did not attend to these people. He went straight to the Xiuzha who were skilled in city construction and spoke of his demands. Build a city? The 3 people looked at each other, their faces filled with disbelief. Did he assume that building a city was just putting a pile of rocks together, and that was it? Is there a problem? Zuemo looked at the 3 with slight displeasure. The 3 people were not dumb. They knew that it was impossible for them to return now that they had arrived here. If they immediately offended the boss, they could not think about having a good future. How big of a city does boss want to construct? Asked one of them. Following the flow of this mountain range, it needs to include these peaks, able to defend against the attacks of a Jindan, able to... the three all collectively sank to inertness. The expense will be a bit high, another person probed. No problem, we have enough jingsher. Zhuomo's attitude was like that of a nouveau riche. We need lots of manpower. Oh, 700 xiuzhe, is that enough? I can also make some puppets. Zhuomo rubbed his chin and said to himself, it seems that I need to let Gongsun Shitty get some more people. These words made the three feel a malicious intent. Was this person a Xiu slave trader? However, the three had seen the combat abilities of this group on the way here. They did not believe Xiu slave traders would have such a strong troop. The three saw Zhuomo was serious and started to also seriously focus on surveying the landscape. A few days later, 2nd Division had smoothly arrived back at camp. When Wei Qingbin came to the crude campsite, he was also very disappointed. However, before he could recover from the disappointment, the xiuzhe who had been hired were led in front of a person. Ji Wei looked down at the crowd of xiuzhe that had recoiled slightly and shouted, "Those that know forging, come out." A while later, they looked at each other, but no one dared to walk out. Ji Wei had expected the situation and followed up with, "Those that know forging can start work immediately. Let me tell you, this place pays wages on a unit basis. If you are late and the positions are taken, don't blame other people." Just as he finished, people instantly reacted, "I know. I know too." Ji Wei was not picky. He waved his hands. "All of you come with me." 8 people followed Ji Wei. Wei Qingbin was among them. Because he had studied small illusory formations, he had put in quite a bit of effort on forging. He was not good at forging big pieces but was very good at making small ones. They were taken to a mountain cave. The mountain cave clearly had been just carved out, and the person who dug it seemed to have no intentions of decoration. The walls were bare stone and mud. When they walked to the end of the mountain cave, they found that the area was extremely wide. However, it was all empty. There was nothing. Someone could not resist. Where's the fire pool for forging? The gold steel drills? Without those things, how can we forge? Ji Wei looked with dissatisfaction at the person and bellowed, "Shut up. You don't have any conduct." Seeing the person shrink back in fear, he snorted coldly and did not look at the person any longer. "Starting from today, you will be working here." The other people had expressions of bewilderment, but did not speak. Ji Wei was very satisfied. "As to the things you mentioned, this place has none of them," Jie Wei said proudly. "Starting from today, you need to adjust to a new kind of forging method." At this time, the xiuzhe beside Ji Wei started to distribute jade boxes to everyone. Wei Qingbin took the jade book with puzzlement. The jade box was very light in his hands. What it contained was very small. He looked cautiously at Ji Wei. Seeing the other did not seem to object to them opening the jade box, he carefully opened the jade box. His eyes suddenly widened, his mind blank. Golden Crow Fire. Chapter 248. The problem of settlement. When Lei Peng and the others returned, Zhuomo was discussing the construction plans of the city with the 3 people. Never having participated in building a city before, Zhuomo was extremely interested. Also, the newly built city was of extremely important in his plan. To the 3 people, a strong village that could defend against a Jindan was something they had never done before. They were extremely interested. As to the feasibility of the plans due to the high difficulty, that was boss' problem. They were only in charge of designing it. What is the use of this beacon tower? Zhuomo pointed at the plans and asked. It is primarily to give warning to allies. Other than that, it can contain 20 xiuzhe. Its Ling shield can protect xiuzhe. Xiuzhe standing on the top do not have to worry about the attacks of the enemy. But don't you think it is too small? It can hold 20 people. It is not small. Small, it's too small. At the very least, it needs to be able to hold 50 xiuzhe. That way it has offensive power. Also, we don't need that fire altar. We only have one city. We don't need to give anyone warnings. Without the fire altar, is it still a beacon tower? We can give it another name. What about Sword Pavilion? How do you guys feel about it? Zhuomo asked with interest. The 3 were wordless. Zhuo clearly had not finished speaking his thoughts. Your plans are pretty good, but it is too conservative. Pure defense cannot stop the attacks of the enemy. Jindan recover Ling power faster than us. If he can't defeat us the first day, he'll come back the second day. If he continues to attack for a dozen days or a month, do you feel we can stop him? The three were speechless again. One person argued, if a Jindan attacks a city, there's no city in Little Mountain Jia that can stop him. There wasn't one before, but there will be one soon. Zhuo looked at the other, and then added, if there isn't one when it's time, we will all die. The three instantly started to sweat, feeling hopelessness. Heavens, who had boss offended? Wait. Jindan. A person flashed across their minds. Clear Sky Old Forefather. There was only one Jindan Xiuzha in Little Mountain Jia. Clear Sky Old Forefather? A person asked in a trembling voice. Zhuo smiled and said, your guess is so accurate. The three's faces turned ashy. Zhuo's smile was so evil in their eyes, more evil than a demon. They were extremely regretful. Before, their lives were poor, but at least they wouldn't be at risk for losing their little lives. Okay everyone, Zhuo clapped his hands, cheer up. I know you are the same as me. You don't want to die. So cheer up. Use your strongest imagination, and give the most plausible plan. One person looked soulless, but he managed to keep his composure. Boss, you can't defend against a Jindan. Then what do we do? Zhuo spread his hands and asked. This person bit out. If we can't defend, maybe we can try to kill him. You're crazy, the other two people yelled. Continue. Zhuo was shocked inside, and gave a surprised expression. This person's face was white, but his eyes flashed with an insane light. Jindan might be strong, but they do have weaknesses. They are too proud, they believe too much in their own strength. They would not care about things that look very dangerous to us. We can make a trap using the city as bait. He may fall for it. It's not possible. He will see through our disguise. You cannot kill a Jindan. The other two muttered as though they were dreaming. Zhuo scanned this person and asked, what's your name? Yuan Jiang, boss, the person answered respectfully. From today on, you are the leader of the three of you. Zhuo then said to the other two, you two will be his assistants. If someone doesn't listen, humph. You won't live if you rebel against a Jindan, but if you rebel against me, you won't have a life now. The two people's faces instantly whitened again and fell silent. Make a new plan, Zhuo said to Yuan Jiang. Yes, boss. Yuan Jiang said respectfully. He knew that if he was able to grasp this chance, his future prospects were limitless. Gong Sun Cha listened to the people report. Xieshan stood at the side with an ashamed expression. He knew that he had gone overboard this time. He had exposed himself too early in front of the public. It was not a good thing for them. Oh, so it's like that. Gong Sun Cha raised his head and gave a shy smile. He said warmly, no problem. Xieshan's heart loosened slightly. However, Xieshan's heart suddenly rose again. Since you guys caused this problem, then you need to wipe your own butts. Gong Sun Cha then seemed to say to himself, oh, this is a pretty good chance, can't waste it. No one understood what Lil Miss meant in his words to himself. Right now, Clear Sky Sect is definitely searching for you, even though you have covered your tracks very well. But they probably will not have to try so hard to find this place. Your present mission is to stop and disrupt their pursuit. Everyone instantly had an excited expression. Wasn't this another chance to fight? The corner of Gong Sun Cha's mouth rose in an imperceptible curve. All of you will lead a platoon in this disruption mission. We also need to take those new people? The people who had just been so excited instantly withered. They finally reacted. What disruption mission? It was a babysitting mission. Thinking about taking along a large group of newbies that didn't know a thing, everyone, including Zhongru, had a grimace on their face. They were very willing to kill. But not one of them was willing to be a babysitter. What, you aren't willing? Gong Sun Cha smiled, showing his teeth. Everyone's hearts suddenly froze. They simultaneously shook their heads. Willing? How can we not be willing? Leading a group of people, It will be very imposing, haha. Lei Peng's laughter was like sobbing. Very willing, very willing. Nian Lu hurried to agree, afraid if he wasn't careful, Lil Miss would fix onto him. Then it really would be getting a strip torn off his hide. Ma Fan saw Lil Miss' eyes float towards him and hurriedly jumped out. This subordinate is willing to be the first to fight. The other people instantly were upset. How come they hadn't been the first to declare themselves? Ma Fan's mind was getting better and better. He hadn't been the core for nothing. Instantly, everyone asked to fight. Gong Sun Cha gave a shy and bashful smile, and said softly, "You have to be careful." Hearing this, it was as though everyone had been pardoned, and they scattered, rushing to go pick people. Zuemo suddenly felt he was much busier. All the Xiuzha that had been brought over had at least one skill. He had to personally make arrangements for many people. However, before this, the first person he had to meet was the one who had planned all this, Bao Yi. "Boss." Bao Yi respectfully bowed. When he first saw Zuemo, he was extremely shocked. From any angle, this boss looked like a youth that did not seem to have even entered his 20s. The more amazed he was, the less he dared to slight boss. To be able to gather together such a large group of people at such an age, his abilities were definitely not something that a little businessman like him could underestimate. After he took a tour around the camp, the amazement in his heart increased. Maybe this camp was extremely crude in other people's eyes, but in the eyes of someone as experienced as Bao Yi, there were too many places here that were not normal. That date seed ship was a rare Jingshi talisman. The female Xiu beside boss and the 3 metal guards enveloped in golden armor were unable to be quantified. The first mission he received was to organize the stores. He was very attentive to this mission. The stores could, to a certain degree, reflect the wealth of boss. The storeroom was a mountain cave. It was heavily guarded with 2 whole platoons of Xiuzha. When he entered the deep cavern and saw the mountainous pile of talismans, he was dumbstruck. In an instant, he felt all the blood in his body suddenly flood into his head. Heavens! It was the first time he had seen talismans piled up in heaps like they were trash. No one to care and repair them. Bao Yi's first thought was, wastrel. They were wastrels. After that, he started to organize through day and night. He organized and sorted the talismans according to type and grade. When Zuemo entered the store and saw the reborn storeroom, he was very satisfied. "You must have worked very hard," Zuemo said. "This is the subordinate's duty," Bao Yi hurriedly said. This guy really had abilities, Zuemo thought inside. Even though he was full of interest towards business, but it was clear that he definitely would not have the time in the future. "You are going to be in charge of the store, and be the quartermaster for the troop," Zuemo reassured him. As the number of people increased, Zuemo felt it was increasingly difficult to manage them all. The training and combat of the Xiuzha in the camp belonged to Gongsun Shidi, but there was a lot of work in supplying resources. It had been a headache for him and Gongsun Shidi. As to Chun Shidi, that maniac could not be relied on. Bao Yi was overjoyed. "Thank you, boss." Quartermaster and in charge of the stores, that was a rich job. What he thought more of was the importance of this job. After this, he did not need to worry about his status in this group. "Work hard." Zuemo encouraged and quickly left the storeroom. Bao Yi's job was very easy to arrange, because no one other than him could do the job. However, Zuemo felt it was very difficult to arrange the other people. They were skilled in a variety of areas, some of which were very obscure. Zuemo still had no idea what to do with them. The only person he could ask for help was Pu Yao. This problem. Pu Yao thought, and then said, "Maybe you can borrow some methods from our Yao art houses." "What methods?" Zuemo's mind became alert. In the bigger Yao art houses, they would take out a portion of resources and monies each year to support those Yao with unique ideas to study new Yao arts. Pu Yao said, "Of course you cannot avoid the necessary examinations and assessments." Zuemo's eyes lit up. That was a good idea. If he didn't know how to organize these people, it was better to let them work it out, and he could save effort. As to resources, it would be within the limits of their abilities. What Zuemo needed the most at the moment was the least effort-consuming method. If it continued like this, he felt that definitely would have no time to cultivate. These days, it wasn't easy being the boss. Chapter 249. A new plan. Xiang's face was black. The battle that had occurred at Nansheng village was nothing less than a slap to his face. Also, this incident had coincided with the most crucial moment in negotiations. Looking at the slightly mocking expressions on the faces of the group of leaders, he understood that he would not be able to negotiate for the price he wanted. He needed to prove Clear Sky Sect's dominance of Little Mountain Jia. He needed to tell everyone what would happen if they went against Clear Sky Sect and him. Xiang's expression was twisted viciously like a wild beast wanting to bite someone. There was none of the slight smile that had been on his face during the day. All of you just wait. Zuo read through Yuan Zhang's new plan. At first glance he liked this plan. A plan that was completely different than before. Yuan Zhang was introducing the details. This is an extreme plan. All of the construction is about one goal. Our imaginary enemy, the Clear Sky Old Forefather. When he spoke of Clear Sky Old Forefather, Yuan Zhang's voice was excited. To be able to maximize offensive and defensive capabilities, we rejected the plan to build a large city in this new plan. We will build a small city, a very small city, one that can only contain 10,000 people. Over here. He pointed at the highest peak. As the new city will be small, it will greatly reduce the area we have to defend and gather our strength. Inside the new city, other than the basic necessities, all other constructions not related to combat have been abolished. The new city will be a big formation. This way, we can dramatically increase the defensive capabilities of the new city. We will hollow out the other 6 mountain peaks and connect them to the new city underground. This way, we can form a gigantic 7-star formation. We've never planned such a large formation before, and do not know if it can stop a Jindan, but this is the limits of what we can do. Boss needs to find experts in formations to complete this plan. Zuo stared at the new blueprints without a word. Yuan Zhang was slightly uncertain. He didn't want to ruin his first job. What he didn't know was that his plan had given Zuo endless inspiration. Especially the idea of digging out the 6 mountain peaks and forming a 7-star formation underground. That idea was too crazy, too creative. Zuo was thinking, if it was like that, the Sky Star Lake could also be included in the big formation. Using the mountains and lakes to set up a formation. Yuan Zhang's plans had opened a new window for Zuo. Zuo had never tried such a terrifying and large formation. However, he knew that if this big formation could be formed, its power would be greater than any formation he had ever set up before. The entire area around Sky Star Mountain would become an area controlled by the new city. Also, it would be so well disguised. Who could think that anyone would set up such an insane formation? There were many places inside the city that could be improved, especially in the area of formations. It was clear that the 3 people were less skilled in the area of formations compared to Zuo. Zuo suddenly thought of a problem. Power. Such a large formations. How many Jingshi would it take to activate? An even more insane idea jumped out of his head. Just at this time he heard Yuan Zhang's worried words. Boss, the building materials for this city isn't easy to find. Zuo silently remembered his thought, and raised his head to smile smugly at Yuan Zhang. We've already started to prepare the bricks. Yuan Zhang stilled, and did not look very happy. He said, Boss, for the new city to achieve the predicted effect, these bricks can't be just anything. We need. Follow me. Zuo did not waste words and turned to lead the front. When Yuan Zhang saw the mountains of blue gold stone bricks that had already been processed, he was dumbstruck. The other 2 people also gaped, looking dazedly at the glittering blue gold bricks. After a beat, Yuan Zhang managed to react and leap forward. Good. The quality is comparable to talismans. However, it is the first time I have seen such a hot presence. Yuan Zhang's expression was excited. Only now did he finally believe that boss really wanted to build a city. These bricks have been processed with golden crow fire. The quality isn't bad. A rock in Zuo's heart landed. It looked like these bricks would satisfy Yuan Zhang's demands. Great! Yuan Zhang was thrilled. Now that the problem of the bricks has been resolved, the other problems are easy. Mo did not speak. In his view, it was the exact opposite. The other problems were even harder. It really was a vast undertaking. Wei Qingbin's recent days were not very good. Rationally, absorbing such a desired and fine fire seed as golden crow fire should make a person happy. Even though there was none of the Ling grains that had been predicted, but everyone had received a black meditation mat. When Master Sun Bao had showed them how to use it, these black meditation mats had become everyone's most treasured possession. Many people were regretting that they hadn't taken enough Jingshi with them. No one had any objections about their wages turning from the Ling grains to Jingshi. What saddened him was the work that had followed. When he saw the bluestone bricks that were multiple times larger than he was, he instantly did not know what to do. After that, it had taken him great effort before managing to process one of them. Then he found that other people had finished 3 pieces. Therefore, his wages were 1/3 of other people's income. Master Ji Wei suddenly gathered people together. Who knows how to make small parts? The dejected Wei Qingbin instantly jumped out, his eyes bright. I know. Other than him, a few other people had also stood up. Wei Qingbin glanced and laughed inside. All of them were people that had not performed well in the recent days. Master Ji Wei did not say anything and gave them each a jade scroll. Make whatever you can from what is in there. All the materials are over there. It's the same, pay by unit. Finishing, Master Ji Wei did not waste words and left. In the time he had spent here, Wei Qingbin had gradually gotten used to the busy atmosphere in this place. There were no idle people to be seen here. All the people, including boss, seemed extremely busy. The cave was even more so. Because wages were calculated according to quantity, everyone was furiously working as the meditation mat meant Jingshi became a lifesaver. Everyone hoped to get more Jingshi. Only Xiuzha that had experienced the lack of Ling energy and faced the possibility that their cultivation could collapse at any time would work so crazily. He started to read the jade scroll in his hands and made a sound of surprise. Everything inside the jade scroll were strange metal constructs. There seemed like talismans but were not talismans. There were very detailed descriptions. Wei Qingbin recognized them. These were for a type of puppet. He silently praised the wisdom of the person who had this idea. The puppet had been deconstructed to many little constructs. This person clearly was going after assembly. Wei Qingbin reacted. The number of Xiuzha here was limited, and there were no Xiu slaves. Puppets were a pretty good substitute. However, what puzzled him was that puppets needed Xiuzha to direct them. With so many puppets, how many Xiuzha would be needed to direct them? This thought turned in his head once before he threw it out. That wasn't something he should care about. He started to work. A short while later, he made his first finished product. He was greatly encouraged and worked hard. He gradually found that the smaller and more exquisite the item, the easier it was for him to make it. Master Ji Wei quickly noticed his specialty and was somewhat shocked before giving him a job with a batch of small items. His wages quickly grew with astonishing speed. The Xiuzha around him stared jealously. These days were actually not bad, Wei Qingbin occasionally thought. Still haven't found them? He Xiang bellowed. You group of garbage. How many days has it been since they escaped? You still haven't found them? This group is very cunning. They had scattered and escaped, which wasted a lot of our time. His subordinate defended. Don't find excuses. He Xiang controlled his anger, his tone dark. What I want are results. As long as old forefathers' order has not come down, I am the chief elder. Before this, I can execute any of you. The subordinates paled. They knew that He Xiang was not wrong. I'll give you 3 more days. If you cannot find them in 3 days, you can take your heads to see me. He Xiang's words seemed to come from the depths of hell, cold and terrifying. The subordinates knew that defending themselves was ineffective at this time. Everyone dejectedly bowed and quickly left. The chief elder would do what he said. The old forefather would not interfere. There were too many people waiting to enter to the outer hall, too many people that could replace them. When everyone had left, He Xiang collapsed on the chair as though he had been robbed of all energy. His eyes were as dull as those of a dead fish. 3 days, that was the deadline the old forefather gave. If there were no further developments in 3 days, he wasn't going to live any longer. Originally, he had wanted to conceal this matter, and had not expected someone to bring it to old forefather. The result could be imagined. If he did not display enough ability, he knew very well the outcome waiting for him. Ma Fan chewed a piece of grass in his mouth, looking in boredom at the sky above his head. He muttered, "Troublesome, it really is troublesome." The platoon leader tightly followed behind his butt, completely disregarding Ma Fan's grouching. He was overjoyed at having gotten picked by Ma Fan. He was one of the original ones and very clear as to Ma Fan's previous position and effect within the troop. Previously, many people had expected Ma Fan would have been the first division leader. This platoon leader knew one thing. If he followed behind Ma Fan, he would learn many things. The Xiuzha under his command did not understand why the platoon leader was so respectful towards this Xiuzha that had been inattentive all this time. In their eyes, the biggest reason Ma Fan did not fit in with the troop was that indifference he exuded. Idle, lazy, wasn't those things that the platoon leader extremely disliked? They aren't far from us. A piece of grass held between his lips. Ma Fan's words were slightly muddled. The platoon leader listened very carefully. On the way here, he was full of admiration towards Ma Fan's judgment. Ma Fan raised his eyelids, looked into the distance and continued. Let everyone recover their Ling power. They will probably encounter us in 6 hours. The platoon leader's expression tensed. The slight wind in the air suddenly seemed slightly murderous. Chapter 250. Pu Yao's insane suggestions. What Emo stretched and released a long breath, his entire body sore. However, when he looked at the jade scroll in front of him, he couldn't help but give a proud smile. He had completely improved the new plan. All the formations in the plans were redone. Formation defense style. He have a taste of the true formations defense style. Emo was very satisfied and proud of the finished plan. In the process of improving them, he had benefited. It had been very valuable. There were many questions he had never thought of before. There were many problems when building a city, and it was far more complex than formations. He tried to put different kinds of formations into every corner of the plans. Unlike Yuan Jiang and the others, Emo would use formations in any place possible if he did not have to use manpower. The enormous construction would become a shockingly complex formation group. A gigantic formation belt composed of more than 400 formations of various sizes. Emo anticipated what expression Yuan Jiang would have when he saw this completely transformed plan. Pu Yao suddenly came out to remind him. This is a good chance. Emo stilled and asked, what's a good chance? Gong Sun Cha had become at leisure recently, and spent every day playing war chess with Pu Yao. Usually, as long as he was facing off Gong Sun Cha, Pu Yao would be much calmer. Many times, Emo could not help but feel that Pu Yao really was like a child. Of course, this kind of comparison was something a Sky Yao could not tolerate. Emo had smartly shut his mouth. Your body is barely acceptable, but you have been lacking in your cultivation recently. The potential of this body has not been completely excavated. Pu Yao said, his voice heavy. Wastefulness is shameful. Emo looked in shock at Pu Yao. That tone. Why did it sound so similar to his own? Wrong feeling, wrong feeling. Emo shook his head and threw the feeling aside. He said in helplessness, there's no other way. You can see it. I'm just one person. I can't be split in two. So what is in front of you is a chance. Right now you have reached the peak of mountain physique. If you take another step, you will give birth to the moon soul, and reach the level of Mo Captain. Light flashed through Pu Yao's bloody pupil. The level of Mo Captain? Equivalent to your Xiuzha's Ningmai. Emo was greatly disappointed. He was already Ningmai. After the breakthrough to create a moon soul, that would just be equivalent to a Ningmai. It was not that attractive to him. Pu Yao seemed to see what Emo was thinking and smiled coldly. Don't feel as though it is unprofitable. Your physique has a name. It is called Jade Metal Head. Metal Skin Jade Bones. In low-level Mo physiques, it is among the top. That guy really put a lot of effort into it. Your luck isn't bad, you made it through. Once you have a moon soul, you can absorb the power of the moon and grow quickly. Also, there is an extra benefit to you that others don't have. What benefit? Zhuemo hurriedly asked. Your spiritual cultivation is star spiritual cultivation. If you can cultivate to moon soul, you can absorb the powers of the stars and moon. If you are lucky, you may cultivate the stars and moon wheel. What is the stars and moon wheel? Just like Wuxia like using grades to divided good and bad, high and low, Yama have similar divisions. Mo cultivate their bodies. There are many considerations. Other than the Mo skills learned during life, all kinds of Mo physiques are crucial, and there are naturally differences in quality. Mo live under military law. They like using military rankings to divide everything. Soldier, captain, colonel, brigadier general, marshal, king. That group of people are simple-minded. Almost everything is divided like this. It's easy to remember. Pu Yao's tone was filled with disdain and scorn towards the intelligence of Mo. Then Jade Metalhead is what level? 5th in captain level. Pu Yao spread out 5 fingers and waved them. Seeing the disappointment on Mo's face, he sneered. Alright, don't act as though you didn't get anything. Mo physique isn't so easy to achieve. Any physique in the top 5 of all levels are what others dream about. However, you have to be careful. Mo physique is good, but if you encounter those people that refine corpses, you have to be careful. Mo physique is something they dream about too. Haha. Zhuemo's heart tightened as he listened. Then stars and moon wheel? It's also a Mo physique. It is also a Mo physique, but it is even more rare. 12th in colonel level, Pu Yao recalled. If I didn't remember it wrong. Zhuemo listened, and was even more confused. Is there any practical benefits? Pu Yao stilled. What is called practical benefits? Like, can I defend against other people's flying swords? Like my strength is 10 times what it was like. Pu Yao rolled his eyes. If someone like you can deal with flying swords with just your body, Wuxia would have been destroyed by us Yama a long time ago. Zhuemo was embarrassed. He found it was correct when he thought about it. If Mo could handle strikes from a flying sword with only their body, then Wuxia of the same level would not be a match for them. Flying swords could deal the greatest damage of all the talismans, and it was the sharpest. If even the flying sword could not wound the other, then other talismans really could not do a thing against the Yaoma. The flying swords of the Wuxia are still very powerful. Pu Yao sighed. You have never seen truly powerful Wuxia. With their actions, they can destroy the earth and sky. They can even easily tear apart space, and nothing can stop them. Zhuemo was not interested in those things that were too far away from him, and diverged back to the topic. Those old people has nothing to do with us. This jade metalhead is 5th in captain level. It should have some unique attributes. Unique attributes? Pu Yao nodded. Of course. The biggest attribute of the jade metalhead is that it is suitable for all Mo skills. Just this? Zhuemo asked in response. Yes, you don't think this is enough? Pu Yao looked at Zhuemo like he was looking at a weirdo. Zhuemo was slightly embarrassed by Pu Yao's stare. But I don't know Mo skills. If you don't want to be killed at any moment, don't cultivate Mo skills in the short term. Pu Yao said solemnly. When you start to cultivate a Mo skill, the presence will radiate out. You will only die terribly. Zhuemo was dumbstruck. After all this time, every word was a waste. Then why should I cultivate my body? I should just cultivate the sword. If not that, then even the consciousness works. Little Thousand Leaf Hands is stronger than that. In a reversal of his usual attitude, Pu Yao shook his head. If you do not have this jade metal head, I won't urge you, but with such a wonderful Mo physique, if you do not cultivate it, it really is a waste. You cannot practice Mo skills at the moment, but that is fine. The jade metal head itself contains extremely deep potential. If you can dig out all the potential, when you cultivate Mo skills in the future, half of the work is already done, and you do not have to worry about the Mo energy slipping out. Zhuemo waved his hand and said unconcernedly, You say these pleasing things, but if we don't get over this obstacle, any Mo skill cultivation is useless. Pu Yao was speechless. He thought and then nodded. You are also right. Maybe we can alter it. Alter? Zuo was slightly bewildered. What was with Pu Yao today? Why was he so chatty? We shall do an analysis of what moves you have available. Pu Yao sat down. Let's not include sword scriptures. Your talent with the sword really is not good, and your sword essence level is too low. Not even at heart-turned sword essence. It isn't even enough to scratch an itch for a Jin Dan. Little thousand-leaf hands is pretty powerful, but your consciousness is not strong enough to threaten a Jin Dan. The Sky Wave Fist scripture is not enough against a Jin Dan. The only thing that can be effective is your big formation. The grade of the Yin fire beads are too low to be of significance. Those sonic lightning walnuts might give him some trouble if they are forged properly. When he finished, Pu Yao spread his hands. See, no matter what you cultivate, it's useless. Zuo was extremely impacted and speechless. However, some areas have potential. Pu Yao knew very well how to use the stick and the carrot. Zuo became alert at those words. Tell me. It's a good idea to use Yang Fiend Hard Lightning to forge sonic lightning walnuts. You may want to borrow from the methods of the Yin fire beads, Pu Yao reminded. Zuo slapped his forehead and said with joy. Right, why didn't I think of that? In the Yin fire bead chapter, there hadn't been just one powerful way to make Yin fire beads. Wouldn't their effects be better than what he thought of himself? He wanted to immediately read the Yin fire bead chapter. The clear sky old forefather was like a sharp sword hanging above his head. He could not sleep well. He had always lacked moves that could threaten his enemies. Now that he had found one, how could he not rejoice? Other than the sonic lightning walnuts, if your physique could improve greatly in the short term, Sky Glass Wave may also give him some trouble. Zuo still again. When he thought closely, he instantly found it feasible. If his body cultivation could make another step forward, if the number of revolutions his Ling power took could increase, the power of Sky Glass Wave would also increase. He had used Sky Glass Wave to break through the space shield of a 5th grade Ling beast. Even though the Bloody Horn Serpent was just a semi-5th grade Ling beast, but if he could increase, he might be able to threaten the clear sky old forefather. The more he thought, the more excited Zuo was. He suddenly found that he could attack. It was like seeing a ray of light in the darkness. Even though it was just a thread, but it still gave him hope. He asked impatiently, "What is the opportunity you said?" City construction. Pu Yao blinked his bloody pupil. City construction? Zuo stilled again. What does this have to do with city construction? The corner of Pu Yao's mouth carelessly rose, his bloody pupil narrowed slightly, and his peerlessly handsome face became even harder to decipher. He looked like a cunning hunter that threw out the bait he had already prepared. With a light laugh he said, "Haven't you ever thought of building the city by yourself?" Build the city by myself? Zuo was dumbstruck where he stood. Yes, build the city by yourself. Pu Yao raised his long and white finger that contrasted with the bright red fingernail. He chuckled. Such a meaningful affair. A city that belongs completely to you. Making the foundation by yourself. Making the city by yourself. Making the formations by yourself. Zuo turned to stone. See, it won't just exercise your body. It can also exercise your consciousness and your Ling power. Where else can you find such a good chance? A little city that can hold 10,000 people, it really is too small. At the beginning, I had assumed you were building a little city that could hold 100,000 people at the very least. That way you will be exercised even more. Shall we expand the city? Don't you want to kill that Jin Dan? Your little life is the most important. The harder you work, the more powerful you will be. If you sweat more now, you will spill less blood later. Hearing Pu Yao nag into his ears, Zuo received a great fright. His eyes rolling back, he fainted. Chapter 251. Crazy Zuo. Even a person as unconcerned with worldly affairs as Chun Yucheng had heard the news. Is there really nothing wrong with Shi Xiang? Looking at a half-naked Zuo that appeared like a maniac, he asked with worry and uncertainty. Gong Suncha shook his head and said, "I don't know. I heard that he's going to build the city by himself." Chun Yucheng carefully asked, He looked with slight sympathy at Zuomo. Xixiang was normally a fanatic, but had the pressure recently been too much and caused him to become abnormal? Yes, Gong Suncha also responded carefully in a small voice as well. I even asked Xixiang a few days ago if we should sweep some more Xiuzhou over. Xixiang said he was going to build the city by himself. So the news is true. Chun Yuqing gave a long sigh and looked again. He sighed. As expected. I just knew that Xixiang isn't the average person. He looked in sympathy at Zuomo, then turned and left with his hands behind his back. Xixiang isn't normal as expected. Gong Suncha gave the same exclamation as before, also turning and leaving. Yuanzhang's heart trembled as he forced himself to say, Boss, this foundation, it needs to be dug deeper to work. Zuomo turned around his face, his eyes gleaming like that of a wolf. Yuanzhang's face paled. Luckily, Zuomo only glanced at him before turning back to furiously start to dig the foundations. He jumped into the pit, his hands dancing as the soil flew. The earth hole quickly increased in depth and size with a speed visible to the naked eye. Yuanzhang furiously swallowed from the side, his face filled with fear. To be in the position of supervisor like this, he was to be pitied. Every time he saw Boss' twisted features, it was as though there was an ancient wasteland beast in front of him that could open its jaws and swallow him at any moment. He would be so frightened by Boss' gleaming gaze to the point of forgetting to breathe whenever he pointed out areas where Boss had not met the specifications. This world was crazy. The frightened Yuanzhang felt every day was full of darkness, so black that there was no light. He could not understand what sickness Boss had that he would suddenly want to construct a city by himself. Yes, this city was really quite small. A new city that could hold 10,000 people, the smallest of small cities, but it was still a city. As grown-up as he was, oh please forgive him for incoherence, it was slightly dubious for Yuanzhang, who was over 80 years old, to say this. However, in his 80 years of life, he had never seen, nor heard of a Xiuzhou who built a city by themselves. What made him feel helpless was that Boss was serious. As a supervisor, Yuanzhang thought that Boss was a very exceptional constructor. Look at that blinding speed. If someone had such a good worker under them, any supervisor would laugh. However, if the situation was changed and there was only this one good worker, then they would cry. With Boss' present speed, Yuanzhang felt hopelessness about building the city. What made him feel the greatest lack of hope was that the other was his boss. Zuomo felt every piece of muscle in his body was trembling uncontrollably. He seemed to have lost control over his body. He opened his mouth like a fish that was thrown onto land, his body motionless. This body cultivation was really through. Zuomo felt even the insides of his head were trembling. All of his power, no matter if it was physical power, Ling power or spiritual power, had been completely consumed in this extreme labor. In the plans for the city, the foundation was to be 20 zhang deep. Zuomo had to use his bare hands to dig out the entire foundation. Puyao was very devious. Zuomo weakly cursed Puyao inside. After resting for a moment, the lingdan he had shoved into his mouth earlier started to release their medicinal power. The black processing meditation mat under his body continuously guided Ling energy into Zuomo's body. At this moment, Zuomo's body was like a parched desert that was greedily sucking in any drop of medicinal and Ling power. After a while, Zuomo recovered some energy and struggled up. The sun above his head was slightly blinding. He turned to glance at the half-completed ditch. Taking in a deep breath, he jumped back into the ditch. The abnormal state of Boss had long ago passed through the entire camp. Everyone had been discussing it in secret. They couldn't understand what Boss intended to do. Zuomo mechanically waved his arms. His speed was very fast. His consciousness was continuously released and reflected every detail of the dirt around him. Puyao had been right. If he could build up this city by himself, his strength definitely could break through to a whole new level. But this was such a perverse plan. Zuomo tightly pressed together his dry lips, pushed his head down and dug crazily. He started to learn how to use his consciousness to inspect the surrounding dirt. How to use the structure already present in the soil to save energy. He started to understand how to frugally use Ling power. Before this, he had never thought there would be a day where he would use Ling power so stingily. He started to understand how to move his hands as he absorbed earth energy at the same time. 3 days later, a square-shaped hole 20 zhang deep appeared on Sky Star Peak. Zuemo looked like a mud person. Only his eyes were revealed. After laughing soundlessly, he sat down and crossed his legs. Yuan Jiang was at the side, gaping as he looked at the 20 zhang deep foundation, a foundation that had completely met the specifications. It was not just him that was gaping. The entire camp was shocked. Those Xiuzha that had had slightly mocking attitudes were so shocked they could not speak when they saw this 20 zhang deep ditch. Who could believe this was something a Xiuzha had dug with his bare hands? However, they had seen the entire process with their own eyes. Those people that had watched in order to laugh at the joke now only felt admiration. In the sea of consciousness, Pu Yao stared at the gravestone and said, "I now understand why you chose him. You," he paused after each word, "are similarly stubborn." The gravestone was still silent, the black clouds slowly moving around it. Gong Sun Cha looked thoughtfully at the meditating Zuemo and turned back to return to the camp. He ordered the Xiuzha in a low voice, "Tell Ma Fan and the others to distract some more. They need to slow them down. We need more time." "Yes." This Xiuzha took out a paper crane, wrote down a secret code on it, and lightly channeled Ling power. The paper crane flapped into the sky and instantly disappeared. Before Ma Fan and the others left, they had left behind their impressions. These paper cranes could follow the impressions and find Ma Fan and the others. Little Mountain Jia was not large. It was convenient to use paper cranes. "What about us?" Another Xiuzha couldn't help but ask. Other than Ma Fan and the others had each taken a platoon with them. There were still many battle Xiuzha at the camp. The figure of Xixiang completely covered in mud appeared in Gong Sun Cha's mind. His steps slightly paused before recovering. "Naturally, we can't be idle as well." Ma Fan scanned the battlefield. More than a dozen corpses laid askew on the grass. Large holes could be seen everywhere. The plains that appeared to extend without end had been torn to pieces. The Ling power was lingering in the air. It almost was possible to smell the viciousness of the battle moments ago. The enemy had all been destroyed, but one of their own had also died. The platoon leader's expression was slightly sorrowful. This was the first time that a fatality had occurred under his command. The remaining Xiuzha were silently cleaning up the battlefield and gathering the spoils. The victory had turned melancholic due to one of their own dying. Ma Fan looked at his slightly dejected fellows and was somewhat shocked but also proud. In any group that he had stayed in before, the morale would have never dropped after a victorious battle, due to one of their own dying. Maybe these were true fellows. Ma Fan thought idly. Just at this time he raised his head. A paper crane flew through the sky. He held out a hand, and the paper crane flew in. Unfolding it and reading, he muttered, "Trouble." He then handed the paper crane to the platoon leader behind him. "What does head mean?" The face of the platoon leader was filled with puzzlement. There was no explicit orders on the paper crane, just telling them to try their best to delay the enemy. Ma Fan did not reply. Noticing the cleaning of the battlefield was almost done, he adjusted his clothing and lazily said, "Get everyone to prepare. We need to leave here. The enemy will probably quickly find this place." "Where should we go?" the platoon leader asked with curiosity. "Let's go south." The platoon leader jumped in fright. "Isn't that Nansheng village?" "Yes," Ma Fan said absent-mindedly. As his understanding of sword essence deepened, his original personality started to gradually show. After the reorganization, he did not need to act as the core, and his entire person seemed to instantly have relaxed and resumed his lazy attitude of the past. "Why are we going there? To attack Nansheng village?" Ma Fan looked at the platoon leader like he was looking at an idiot. "We only have this tiny amount of people. Attack Nansheng village? Do you want to die? Then why are we going south?" Ma Fan did not look at him. He plucked a stalk of green grass and held it in his mouth, mumbling, "Killing midway." The sound of the whistle was like knives. Zuemo opened his eyes, the light in them bright. He had meditated for 3 whole days. How long had it been since he had such a long meditation? Zhuemo thought back in his mind, his heart filled with joy. He could feel the change in his body. Jade Metalhead, ranked 5th of all captain physiques. As expected, it was extraordinary. He didn't seem to use strength, but his body seemed to be pulled up by an invisible rope, and he stood up. Metal skin and jade bones. He had not experienced the benefits of these jade bones, but the benefits of this metal skin had started to clearly show. The muscles of his body had been as hard as metal in the beginning with astounding flexibility. When he dug the foundation, every piece of muscle in his body seemed to have been reforged again. The space between the muscles decreased, and the muscles became tighter and more dense. These minuscule changes increased his strength by 3/10. He did not need to use Ling power or earth energy to easily push his hand into the bluestone. Looking at his body covered in mud, he wasn't angry and snickered. The little art of cloud and rain instantly appeared above his head. The rain vented, and in a short while, all the mud on Zhuemo's body had been washed away. Zhuemo discovered that his skin seemed to now show a strange black sheen that seemed slightly metallic. As he marveled, Zhuemo took his eyes away. Yuan Jiang, who had fallen asleep as he stood guard, was awoken at this time, and opened his blurred eyes. When he saw Zhuemo, he instantly shook, and the drowsiness disappeared. He seemed to jump off the ground and rapidly flew next to Zhuemo boss. Let's continue. What do we do next? Zhuemo looked at the deep foundation. Bravado suddenly flooded into his heart. Come on, that you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.